me a regular habit.
Get on the side. As good as I'm told.
Yes, ma'am. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
We don't blame you.
I'm glad.
More reading.
No.
I will allow them to speak at the 26th.
Well, hang
Yeah,
on.
we can stay as long as they want to. It'll just be, you know, the call to order, consent agenda, stuff, Jeff, for the night, the whole night.
Wherever you own.
Actually, it's a hard efficiency investigator. Hey, you can't start any ruckus out of it. You can just start any ruckus.
Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thursday, July 14th meeting of the Asheboro City Council. I know many of you have an agenda. You can pick that up at the door, and there are probably still some copies out there if you don't have one. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with our traditional silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. I ask that you stand and join me in a moment of silent meditation. I invite you to pray in any manner that you are comfortable, and we'll follow that with the pledge of allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have quite a crowd tonight, and most of you are here to talk about the Old Lexington Road Ballpark access project. We had been saying along the last couple of weeks that we would schedule a meeting, and we were talking about the 21st. Turns out, for various reasons, it will be a meeting strictly for that here in this room on the 26th. It's Tuesday night, the 26th at 7 o'clock. We will stay as long as we need to stay that night to hear everybody and everybody's opinions. I will say at this point, we're not prepared to have that discussion tonight because much of what you know or think you know is not accurate. There are maps, there are drawings that will be available on the city website next week. Some of you have asked for maps, and John has agreed to give you maps, drawings of the project. And the Homeowners Association at Lexington Commons, Ms. Lorimer has a drawing.
That's correct.
She has a drawing, so.
We gave her one set of drawings. She asked the road be relocated. We relocated as much as we could, and we gave her another set.
All right, so
The proposed road.
between now and the 26th, there is an opportunity to find out more more factual information and less so-and-so told me this and that. If you are absolutely determined to speak to the council tonight about this, we're getting ready to have our public comment period, and I would ask that,
Mayor, just for the record, there'll be a full-blown presentation that night too.
okay, we will have a presentation. You will, between now and the 26th, you will have time to see the drawings, ask questions of city staff, actually have a drawing in your hand and find out what is more factual than what you may or may not know right now. Having said that, if you want to leave, I will give you a minute to do so. We will not be talking about that project tonight. We are getting ready to open a public comment period, which we have at every meeting, and if you really want to address the council on this tonight, I will suspend our normal rules and allow you to do that. So,
But there will be plenty of time on the 26th.
we will take all the time necessary on the 26th to hear everybody and everybody's concerns and comments. And as I said, there will be a presentation, so you will find out a little bit more. But between now and then, you can find out about everything you want to know about it. So, I will open the public comment period.
Excuse me. Item 11 on the agenda says discussion of upcoming events. What you're saying is that will not be that part of the agenda tonight.
Item 11 is just me going over a calendar of things that happen in Asheboro. Events as in concert tomorrow night, ball game, different things that council normally attends or needs to try to attend. It's just an update of our calendar, and we do that at every meeting. So we are not planning to discuss this ballpark access tonight. And I'm sorry that you all thought we were. We had been saying we would have a meeting on this on the 21st, but that schedule does not work, so it will be the 26th in this room at 7 o'clock. All right, so I will, this is the appointed time to have the public comment period, and if there's anybody in the room that would like to address the council, I will ask that when you speak, you identify yourself by name and address, and there is a pad on there and print your name. And the reason for printing your name is when we transcribe the tape, sometimes we can't get it exactly right from the audio tape, so we'd like to have your name printed on the book. Ward, you raised your hand. Come on up.
Thank you. I'm going to print my name. I hope you can read it. No one else can read my handwriting. And I understand full well that you're not going to discuss McCrary Ballpark or what I call the Lyles project, but I do want to make a few comments. I think this project has gotten off on the wrong track. I think that you ran it down the road. I'm not saying you individually, because I don't know that everybody here was involved in that, but it went too far down the road, and now we're full of rumors, speculation. We know there's a grant to buy the Lyles property. But right now, you're talking about a presentation on the 26th. That's a one-way presentation. That doesn't solicit any feedback ahead of time for the community to build into your presentation. And I'm going to ask that you take a pause, that you pause and you establish a task force made up of citizens of the community, of people in the neighborhood who are impacted by this, and that task force consider not only access to the ballpark, but also use of the ballpark, because we don't need late night concerts in there that disrupt the neighborhood. So that's first. Number two, I think it needs to be a group that's very inclusive. If city council members need to be in the group, people from the neighborhood, there are other people, there are other members of the community who have differing views who might want to be participating in that. So I would ask that you do that. And then finally, I made a note here because I forgot what I was saying. We need some transparency, because that's not what we've gotten so far. This has been a concealed project. It's been concealed. I found out about it through the grapevine. I had to make some phone calls. I came to a planning board meeting earlier this week, and that's when I found out this would not be taken up by the planning board, but directly by the city council. So please, put together a task force, get some feedback from people, and you might get a better solution than what you have right now. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to that, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I hear what you're saying, and perhaps I've misunderstood the purpose of our workshops. We're trying to follow the NCDOT model, and much preliminary work goes into, when the DOT, I'll use the Asheboro bypass as an example. They established 7 routes. They worked on that for 2 years behind the scenes, before they started having their public workshop meetings. And they had those, they received all the input that you just described, which is the purpose of the workshops. I think we're scheduling to do, at least in my understanding of what we're offering or presenting to do, scheduling, exactly what you've asked for. Much preliminary work had to be done to determine if there was even a project to even consider. I mean, if for instance, if land's not available, then it's not worth considering. So it's not so much a take exception per se. I'm just trying to share. We probably look at 50 different things in a year's time that never see the light of day because they don't work out for one reason, whether it be funding or logistics or availability of various resources. And that's the step we're at now. It's taken on a life of its own as some information has gotten out, and that's fine. But we can't accelerate the design and theoretical layout of projects, but so fast, and that's the step we're at. So I hope on the 26th we're as open as you expect us to be.
May I rebut that?
Sure, come right on.
Sure.
You know,
I'm as confused as you are.
Okay, well, okay, that's good to hear. I don't think you've walked through communities and sat down with people who live there to a great extent and to hear the concerns. And I don't think that's gonna come out in a meeting where you're sitting here behind a panel desk and you've got people who.
That's not what a workshop is. It's not held like a meeting.
Well, I haven't heard it described as, I haven't heard what a workshop's gonna be.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
I
trying to
just
share
heard
that
it not,
with you.
okay. Okay, well, I heard we were having a meeting on the 26th. I heard a comment about the DOT. Well, this isn't the DOT. So I don't know how that's gonna be played out. But I do think that you need to get more people involved who live in the community to be able to be involved in ideas and planning. Not all the good ideas come out of City Hall, but believe me, I served on a board of trustees. That's a state institution. And I understand sunshine and transparency. We used to say that sunshine is the best disinfectant. That's true. It's also a matter of working in the right spirit. And I don't think that's taken place so far. So I think you need to step back, form a good task force. It needs to be diverse. It needs to have a lot of different views. And let's start over and go from there.
Well, I guess that's the diversion here. I'm still of the opinion that's exactly what we're doing. To have anything to discuss, there should be a subject and a suggestion, and that's what we're providing.
So let me ask this. When would you vote on such a project?
There's no schedule for that.
Okay?
It would not, absolutely not be on the
We're in
26th.
the feasibility stage. There's nothing to vote on.
Okay. Well, I hope you'll be open-eared, and I hope you'll,
I hope you will.
and I will, and I hope you'll have a diverse group of people on the task force, not just city council listening to people like me come up to the podium, and that's it. On a task force.
I will correct one thing that you have heard. There is not a grant to buy this property.
Okay?
At this point, I'm unaware of any grant.
So where's the funding coming from?
Well, that's to be determined as well. If preliminary costs and this sorts of things, and we're getting down in the weeds, I know we didn't.
Yeah, I didn't plan to do that either.
But we're not discussing the project, we're discussing procedure and layout, and that's what I'm attempting, poorly it sounds like, to convey this step that we're actually at, as opposed to the step that's perceived we're at. It's not like on the 26th, we're gonna hear you this, and this, and then go buy something.
Okay?
nothing of the sort is even properly advertised or possible. I think the city attorney would agree with me about that. So it's, we're going through the steps. They mirror the NCDOT process, which I'm trying to share. Not everybody's familiar with that as I am, just by virtue of my career. And it vets out a tremendous amount of information.
Okay, very good. I hope we have a good turnout on the 26th then.
And then
Thank you.
we'll take the steps accordingly.
All right, thank you very much.
We could actually decide between now and then to move it to Public Works if it looks like there will be more people than this. As you can tell, this room is full. And most of you are here for this one item. So when we are expecting large crowds and contentious issues, we have in the past moved to our conference room at Public Works. So if we decide to do that, we will let some of you know best way we can, put it on the city website and try to get the word out to you. And Public Works is on North Fayetteville Street, just before you get up to the Aldridge Street right there, just North Fayetteville. It's
Probably a good idea. The audio visual in the space is much easier to deal with up there.
we have more space. We can put up better drawings, more access to the drawings.
And it's on the ground floor.
And and it is on the ground floor, handicap accessible.
Can we make that decision now so they would know?
He can call the meeting now.
All right, we'll just, I can promise you between now and then, there will be more people. So, we will go ahead and I will make that decision right now to have this meeting on the 26th, Tuesday, the 26th, at 7 o'clock at our Public Works Conference Room. It's a big parking lot on the right-hand side, plenty of parking, handicap ramp, ground floor, and better audio visual up there. So, and we'll have maps and drawings, and we will solicit input.
And
All
it
right.
can include, which, two different things, but I hear what you're saying about the usage. We have a concert arena. That's not it.
We hear about it, I mean, most of you guys, I'm not telling you anything, but we hear about it when Copperhead game runs, or the Zookeeper game run late when they're having fireworks. You know, we all get the
We've
calls.
got $1 million synthetic surface over there. We're gonna have the bands on the cheap, right?
Well, let me tell you, I live across the street from that place, and I enjoy those fireworks.
Yeah, well, but
We're
you
not
have,
building that $1 million field.
you have neighbors that don't. You have neighbors that don't, and some nights when they run extra innings or the ball game is really slow and the fireworks don't go off till 11 o'clock, it's upsetting, and we do hear about that. All right,
We need to go to a laser light show.
The council can only meet in a meeting.
yeah.
We can't have an informal council meeting. The council can only meet in a meeting.
We're bound by law to advertise our meetings. If there are 3 of us in a room together talking about city business, that's illegal. 4, more than 3. And so anytime we have a meeting of this nature, it will be advertised and a specific time. So you might, any of you can meet with us individually, share your thoughts. If you're more comfortable doing that, you can do that. But we can't meet with you in groups of more than 3 without advertising and setting a meeting, a scheduled meeting.
Check the website.
I know.
Check the web. We used to have a daily paper. We don't. It's a practical matter, you know. Larry does a great job of the weekly paper, but
All right. So I would ask that those of you that have access to the proper information, share it with your neighbors. Let's try to get as much of the factual information out to the neighborhood as we can between now and the 26th, so that we don't spend a whole lot of time on I heard this and I heard that when it's not actually accurate. All right, next, that wants to speak to the council, and if somebody in the room is determined to speak about this project, we'll hear that speak. Anybody in the room can speak, I'm not limiting to this, so come on up, sir, print your name in the book. And, if any of you are inclined to leave at this moment, because we've just had this short little conversation, then feel free.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to just have a few words with you. And this is pertaining to the land development on Zoo Parkway, Darren Lucas's property. Are the members familiar with that from the planning and zoning meeting?
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. There'll be a hearing on that, so we really want to be heard.
That is an agenda item tonight, and there will be a public hearing directly related to that when it comes up on the agenda. So hold your thoughts.
Right now,
Given the same opportunity.
you want me to scratch this off?
Nope,
No,
that's fine.
You coming back, we know.
I can't hear you good, so
All right.
let me be advised.
And I'm sorry you can't. We will try to speak up.
Well, that's an age problem, I think.
I can relate.
All right. Anyone else? Next. Come on, Maria.
I thought you were gonna stand up. I guess it's me now.
Well, I've heard you speak, so I'm excited about.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Maria Faust, and I am a rising junior at the North Carolina School of Math and Science.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say it if you didn't. This young lady has been a student at Southwest Middle School, County Schools, and she was recently accepted to the School of Math and Science.
Most impressive.
Thank you. Okay. So there is an issue that I believe everyone knows, heard about. It was supposed to be on the agenda today, but some things got mixed up. And I've heard my dad's side of the story, and I've heard the community side of the story, but I'm here to ask you guys personally some questions. Is that okay? I want to get the entire story. I want to get all the facts, because I promise I've heard everything he's had to say. Number one, are we aware that that statue was placed there, supposedly, for Southern heritage, and it is supposed to be a pride for Randolph County? However, when I go to the mall with my friends, there is a picture of the old courthouse out there, yet the Confederate statue is crossed out. It's cropped out exactly where it's supposed to be. If it's for pride and it's for heritage, why isn't it shown? Why isn't it displayed?
Give up, why?
I don't know. Why isn't it?
It's not
If
our
it's supposed-
statue, it's not our courthouse, and it's certainly not our mall. I don't know.
Then would you support moving it?
It's not our statue, it's not our courthouse.
But you can back us up. It's not my statue, but I support
I am
moving it.
perfectly fine with them moving.
Oh, thank you.
That's what they want.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna ask that the council not engage in this conversation. We will hear your questions, and we can individually address your questions with you and your father, which we've done many times. Be glad to, you go right ahead, but we'll be here all night if we engage, and you.
Mr. Mayor, that's my fault. She asked me earlier if she could ask questions. I assumed that.
Well, I just told her she could.
Yeah, as people were walking in, she would ask the questions. I didn't expect it.
It's fine.
I understand. I don't mean to
You
keep
go
you
right
all
ahead,
day.
Maria.
I just want everyone to be aware that this is an issue, and I'm moving, so I won't be able to be as involved in it as I could have been. So I just want to make sure everything is said. That I just want to make sure everyone knows that there is a current problem, and that me as a citizen has power to speak, but you as a community and as leaders in the community have power to use your influence. So I guess I really don't have that many questions as long as that's all understood here. But I did really want to bring up that point though, because I've been told so many times, especially living in Randolph County, that this has all been a sense of pride. And I understand pride in one's family. My papa and my dad and my mama, I have so much pride, enjoyment, and honor in my family. So I understand the sense of wanting to have pride, but it's hypocrisy to call it pride and then not show pride anywhere. To not hide it away like it's a secret, but then want to keep that secret. That's rude, especially to the people who it affects, the people who it hurts. So as long as that's out there, that's all I have to say. So I guess no questions. I was going to write this whole thing up here about. As long as that's all understood by everyone, and as long as you continue to hear our questions when they come up, and as long as you continue to know that there is a problem, that they're not going anywhere. I've heard conversations. This is not going anywhere. This will be a topic that will be addressed all the time. And every time I'm in town and I'm not studying constantly for NCSSM, I will be here too to remind you of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Good luck in Raleigh. It is Raleigh, right?
Yeah,
Raleigh, Durham? Okay. Good luck. I know you'll do well. And I apologize for cutting you off, but we generally don't engage in the public comment period. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Item 4 is consent agenda. Council, is there any item on the consent agenda in front of you that you would like to move or remove for individual discussion or consideration?
Mr. Mayor, staff would just ask that item 4G, talking about specific equipment, we need to do a little more research on that, be removed. But that's the only item,
Remove 4G.
4G. Yes,
Okay,
G.
we need action to remove that or just,
Just whenever it's approved, and say
Okay.
approve all
We gotta keep 'em
except.
'cause we can't get no more.
that's the truth.
That's our problem at work.
Everything we've got ordered is back ordered. Yeah, some of it 24 months. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item G.
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 4G.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Burks. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved, minus item G. Mr. Nuttall, item 5A is case number RZ-22-06, and it's an application to amend the RA6 zoning on property at 3140 Zoo Parkway, including lots within Parkway South Townhome Subdivision. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing to amend an existing RA6 conditional zoning district for property comprising Parkway South townhomes located at 3140 Zoo Parkway. It's inclusive of all of the lots and homes within this development, as well as a city-maintained lift station. The applicant on this request is Parkway South Homeowners Association, who has an interest in the property. The purpose of this application this evening is to request that zoning approval be given to allow what are currently privately maintained streets within this planned unit development to be converted to publicly maintained streets following the appropriate and necessary steps. So this would be the first step in that process. There are 38 parcels involved in this application, just over 7.5 acres. Again, we have what is defined by the city ordinance as a residential planned unit development consisting of townhomes as well as a sewer lift station. And for the record, the required notice pertaining to this public hearing has been published and mailed to subject and adjoining property owners, and we've also properly posted this property noting the public of this hearing. The property involved in this request is outlined in blue on that map in front of you. The orange color denotes the RA6, which is a high-density residential zoning district here in the city. Any white area on that map is area outside of the city's zoning jurisdiction. You'll note to the northeast of the property, there is a red area that's identified as B2 and yellow R10. That, of course, is the city's, New City Sportsplex property. We have Crossroads Retirement on the east side of this property, which is an office and apartment zoning district, and we do have some industrial zoning to this property away to the north. This property is in the city limits, unlike some of the property surrounding where you see that dot pattern. That area is actually within the city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdiction, but this particular property is within the city limits. This map is helpful to see all the properties involved in this request, which are denoted by letter A. Any other letters identify an adjoining property owner who would have received notice pertaining to this application. It's a topographic and utility map. You'll see that we do have water going down both Old Cox Road as well as Zoo Parkway. You can see the water, publicly maintained water line that serves the houses, as well as that green and black line, which identifies a sewer force main to the lift station that the city already maintains. This is an aerial map, just give you a better idea of the development pattern for the area. On the screen is what I've distributed to council. This is the zoning site plan that is intended to show what is, why this request is being made and what an approval would mean. And what's of note is that the request would dedicate to the public and ultimately City of Asheboro maintenance control areas between the existing curbs of this street and convert that to following some additional steps to a public right-of-way versus what is currently out there, which is a privately maintained street that the homeowners association currently maintains. This project is approximately 20 years old when this was built. Some photos of the area. This shows you the subject property as seen from Zoo Parkway. This is looking north. Subject property will be on the left in this photo. This is from the entrance from Zoo Parkway into the development. You can see that valley curb in the picture, and if you look from both sides of the road, what is proposed and has been presented would be the city assuming maintenance from those curb lines. This is another view looking further north, north along Zoo Parkway, and here's a shot looking south. This is an interior to the development. You can see the homes. Gives you an idea of the pavement condition, which is within the development, and the density of this project. This is a location where the roads intersect, these private roads intersect, showing you the dumpster and enclosure that serves the townhomes. This is a view looking back up towards the exit of the development onto Zoo Parkway. This is the city-maintained lift station that we have had maintenance authority on for, I want to say, about 15 years. So this was built to serve the development and eventually turned over to the city for maintenance.
And that, the currently private drives, but proposed cities, that's the only access to that pump station?
Yes. As we look at the analysis on this application, again, we're looking at property that's within the city limits. Zoo Parkway is maintained by NCDOT. This is a major thoroughfare. We have 35 residential townhome units on the property, as well as a lift station lot and associated common area that serves the development. Again, this is not proposing any new construction or an increase in the number of dwellings. The primary question before council is whether the city will assume maintenance and ownership of the private streets within the development. As part of that, the applicant has proposed new building setbacks to ensure that if that's done, we can still certify zoning compliance for the existing structures off what could be a newly established public right-of-way. So that is identified on that plan as well. When we received this application, we contacted various city departments about the application. We have shared these plans and had discussions with various departments. There's been no objection after the review of city departments and staff at the proposal and the conditions, and most importantly of the roadway pertaining to the city accepting maintenance. There's no technical reason in the staff's opinion that would preclude the city from taking over maintenance. There were some comments, though, that did evolve out of those discussions and meetings, and one is pertaining to the existing roadway design. And it was noted by Public Works pretty early in the process that individual sanitation can pick up is not viable for this development. The design is not feasible to allow us to do that. So in turn, dumpster service will need to continue, whether this is private or publicly maintained. There are some limitations that the homeowners have put in terms of traffic control. So there is a reduced speed limit that is identified as you come into the neighborhood. For the council to be able to enforce any type of traffic controls, that would require separate consideration by the city council in terms of a reduced speed limit or a prohibition of on-street parking, for instance. Those are that's traffic authority that council typically handles outside of the zoning ordinance. It's important to note that if the council approves this request and we move towards a public street designation for these properties, that all of the homes within this development will need to be readdressed and street names provided and approved by Randolph County E911 to serve these lots. So this will lead to all of these property owners being readdressed and having to determine street names for this development, which at this point I don't believe has been done. I think the plan just says proposed street. That is something that can come later, but would need to happen before the final plat dedicating these streets is concluded. And again, these are all addressed off of Zoo Parkway, so that is why that would need to happen. We'll note that this is within what the land development plan calls as the Village Activity Center. There are, as you can see from the overview maps, and recently there has been additional development in this area that is really a mixture of uses, and hence this is what's known by planning and zoning as a Village Activity Center. I'll say sidewalks are not included. You didn't see any sidewalks that were shown in any of those pictures. This development actually predates the city's requirements for sidewalk construction for townhome projects. In terms of the standards on these streets, our public streets are typically 28 feet wide, and this is for newly constructed streets. Typically, for new construction, we have a 28-foot wide section with a 50-foot public right-of-way. In this instance, with the development existing, we would be assuming maintenance on approximately 19 to 20 feet of asphalt and additional valley curbing that carries water away from the streets. So the proposal is to establish public right-of-way from back of curb to back of curb. You'll see on that plan there are also easements shown that the city staff think is necessary and important for maintenance of city utilities, and an easement for street signs to be erected if this request is approved. Again, Village Activity Center and the Southeast Small Area Plan. This is in the city limits in a primary growth area. As we look at goals and policies within the land development plan, they're on the screen and contained within your report. We tend to believe that there are 3 that can support this request, with 1 being negative towards the request. Our final analysis on this application is that we identified no maintenance issues related to the condition of the streets or the utilities. We are suggesting conditions on this application that we think are important for continued code compliance if the application is approved. Clearly, if this is approved, the city will assume those maintenance costs of that roadway and any street lighting that falls within this public right-of-way. Staff's recommendation and the planning board's recommendation, the planning board heard this at the June planning board meeting, is to approve this application with the following conditions. Condition A, that the use remain a residential planned unit development as currently exists. That any parties involved in this request and owners and successors agree to the conditions of this application. Solid waste collection, again, must be done via dumpster service. The city of Asheboro will not pick up individual cans within the development. We're requesting that the final plat that publicly dedicates street right-of-way state that the city of Asheboro will not pick up individual cans for the development to put future owners on notice of this limitation. The following shall be established by the applicant prior to the city of Asheboro's acceptance of streets within the development. There are any signs excluding regulatory traffic signs would need to be removed by the owners prior to the city assuming public right-of-way. Second condition there under D is that zoning can speak to on-street parking prohibitions. I believe the owners association currently prohibits on-street parking. Again, those are relatively narrow roadways. We suggest imposing a condition that further strengthens that position in terms of prohibiting on-street parking. There could be additional steps the city could take in terms of on-street parking prohibition, but we do think this can be a part of the application here this evening. And finally, that prior to the recording of a plat that would dedicate these streets, that the owners sign in return for recording the memorandum of land use restriction that would officially designate this district. So that is my report, Mr. Mayor. Again, you have two actions before you here this evening. One is consideration of the consistency statement. The second is consideration of the rezoning itself. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any questions of Mr. Nuttall? Okay.
Is anyone here from the association?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. This is a public hearing, and we will get to that second. In the interest of transparency and clarity, same thing, I guess, I would like to make note for the record that Mr. Moffitt was, until recently, a property owner down there. His mother-in-law actually lived in A5.
Yes, unit
202. And was an owner, but he has, this record here still has his name on it. It is not completely up to date. And want to make the record aware that he is no longer an owner there and therefore does not need to recuse himself from this discussion. All right. Anyone in the room that would like to address the council on this request?
I'm Denise Summerell, and I am the member of the board of the Parkway South HOA, and I want to say I appreciate all the hard work that the people at City Hall have done for this. I have just been awed by that, and all I want to say is, do you have any questions for me?
All right, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Do you speak for the homeowners association?
I do, and our
Okay, that was one question. My
Okay.
second question. Do you accept the conditions that Mr. Nuttall, you as a homeowners association, accept the conditions that Mr. Nuttall spelled out?
We do. I
Thank
do,
you.
and we do.
And the record will show that they do accept those conditions.
That is unanimous, right? Everybody in that owns the apartment, townhouses, right?
I'm sorry,
But that's unanimous, right? Everybody that owns the
well,
townhouse.
homeowner association speaks for all the owners.
Okay.
Ma'am, are you president of the homeowner association?
Yes, sir, but the president is here. I was just the one that followed this project.
Okay.
Would you like to speak to him?
who is the president? Mr. Gowdy, come on up to the microphone just for clarity and safety's sake. I don't doubt Ms. Summerall, as being able to speak for the homeowner association, but I'd like for the president to also agree that you do accept these conditions.
We do.
Okay. And your name is James Gowdy, you're
Yes.
president of the
President
homeowner
HOA.
association. All right, thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of the homeowner association, council? All right. Anyone else in the room that would like to address the council on this request? Council, what are your thoughts?
Mayor, based on the consistency statement provided by staff, I move that we approve the amendment to the existing rezoning RA6, subject to the conditions enumerated in the presentation, which are acceptable to the homeowners association.
We have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, sir. In just a minute, you'll have your opportunity to address your concern on the other project on Zoo Parkway. So item 5B is case number RZ 22-07. It's an application to rezone property located on the west side of Zoo Parkway, located approximately 225 feet south of Ridge Avenue. Mr. Nuttall.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a application filed by Darren Lucas representing the owner. We are looking at property on the west side of Zoo Parkway. This request would take the property from the current R10 medium-density residential district to an R7.5 conditional zoning medium-density residential district. So that is a somewhat more dense district that's being requested here this evening. Before I get too far along, I'm going to give you some copies of this plan that maybe you can see better. There is one Randolph County PIN involved in this request this evening. It's just over 2.5 acres in size. Property is currently undeveloped. For the record, I'll state that we have published this public hearing in the paper, mailed notices, and properly posted the sign about the hearing this evening. On the screen is an overview map. In blue is the subject property. The yellow area on this screen, for the most part, is R10, an R10 medium-density residential zoning district, which is what the subject parcel is zoned. The red areas on the screen are commercially zoned properties and districts, and the purple is industrially zoned properties. And you can see that there's a good amount of those north, just due north of the property as you enter the commercial corridor along Dixie Drive. The white area on this map, again, is area beyond City of Asheboro's land use jurisdiction. Subject parcel is identified by A on this map. The other letters depict properties, owners that would have received notice pertaining to the application. The topographic and utility map shows the location of existing city water and sewer utilities. You can see that the city already has utilities available to serve this property in the front. This is an aerial map, gives you an idea of these surrounding development pattern and land use in the area. On the screen is, and what I've distributed to you, is the current site plan that we are considering here this evening. I'll note there are 14 residential units via 7 two-family structures that would be built with this project. The plan also depicts the necessary parking and sidewalks that would serve the units and deliver residents to the recreational areas on the property, which are identified on the plan, as well as the screened dumpster, which is towards the entrance of the property as you would enter into the development on the right. The landscaping requirements and proposal is depicted by the plan as well. You'll see there are a series of trees to ensure that the street yard landscaping requirement would be satisfied under the project, as well as a buffer along the southern and northern property lines that would be made up of a mixture of existing vegetation and where necessary new plantings at a ratio that's identified in that plan. And then along the western boundary, as you can see, there's not a development proposed in that area. There would be vegetation preserved to satisfy any landscaping along the western boundary of the property. These are the elevations that were submitted for this project. So again, each structure would contain a separate single-family unit. This is a view standing at the subject property looking north along Zoo Parkway. We turned around and are looking south along Zoo Parkway here. Again, further north up Zoo Parkway, looking north, you can see the beginning of that commercial district with the service station sign in the background. And then another view, this time along Ridge Street at adjoining residences. So we look at the analysis on this application. This request, as stated, is for townhomes under the city zoning ordinance. Such a project is viewed as a residential planned unit development. That's how we reviewed this application. The property is within the city limits. Those utilities are available, so there's no annexation that would be required in this case. Zoo Parkway is maintained by NCDOT. It is considered a major thoroughfare. It does move a pretty high volume of traffic. The proposal, again, is for 14 lots or homes that would be accessed via a private street or driveway. The initial application that was presented to staff and the planning board actually had 2 additional units, and there were 16 units that were originally proposed at the planning board. Following that meeting, the applicant resubmitted a plan that reduced those units, the number of units, to 14. As you'll see on the site plan, there is one entrance proposed and only one entrance to the project from Zoo Parkway. According to the plans that you are seeing, these would be single-story homes between 825 and 855 square feet each. Again, number 6 identifies what you're looking at in terms of that site plan. The staff has worked with the applicant to ensure that the site plan does meet the minimum requirements of the city's codes. Both the current R10 zoning district as well as the proposed R7.5 district permit single and 2-family dwellings. That 10 and the 7.5 stand for a minimum lot size requirements for new non-townhome or cluster home development. So an R10 typically requires 10,000 square feet of minimum lot size. R7.5 is 7,500 square feet. So you'll see R7.5 is more dense, does permit more density than the R10 district. Under the city zoning ordinance, you are allowed to cluster those homes into a townhome project as long as you're not exceeding the density that would otherwise be permitted by the zoning district. So that minimum lot size does not apply in the case of a townhome or a planned unit development project. When you look at density on this development, and again, this is an attached single-family project. There will be lots established to enable home ownership. When you look at the density, you're about at 6 dwelling per acre when you deduct land area for the private drive. The proposed R7.5 district permits a maximum of about 6 dwelling units per acre when there is no public or private street right-of-way required. So this application is at the upper limits of what we would anticipate to see in terms of density for an R7.5 district. If you look at the definition within the zoning code, R7.5 is intended to provide regulations which will produce a moderate intensity of residential uses, usually single-family and no more than two-family in character, and served by central water supply and sewage disposal. When you look at the city's land development plan for guidance on this application, it identifies this as a neighborhood residential area intended to accommodate existing medium-density, single-family residential neighborhoods while encouraging new neighborhoods of similar density to provide a greater sense of community. The actual maps of the land development plan identify this as a central area and within a central small area plan within a primary growth area, and again, considered neighborhood residential. As we looked at the land development plan's goals and policies portion of that plan for guidance, staff believes that there are 5 goals or policies that generally are supportive of this application. 2 tend to be non-supportive of the request. The staff's final analysis is that acknowledging that the district that is proposed would allow development that exceeds the general density of the surrounding neighborhood, the R7.5 zoning district is considered compatible with the land development plan's neighborhood residential designation, and the plan supports a variety of housing options being available to the community. The plan revision reducing the number of homes from 16 to 14 brings a request more in line with the density expected to be generated by R7.5 development. Furthermore, this revised site plan that's been received makes additional commitments related to project landscaping and is maintaining, and in the case of open space or land that would be set aside and preserved as natural area, in the case of open space, this plan before you, in fact, exceeds the city's planned unit development requirements. We do propose conditions for the district. They're considered on, they're included in your report, and I'll go over them in a second here. With the inclusion of those conditions, staff believes that this amended proposal is reasonable and approval to be in public's interest. The planning board, again, when they saw this application, they saw 16 residential units. We had a very similar discussion in terms of the land development plan and densities. They had a recommendation to deny. Subsequent to that, the application was reduced to 14 residential units. Real quickly, the conditions proposed by staff that we think are necessary to ensure continued code compliance stipulate that this shall be a residential planned unit development. All parties involved in the request agree to the conditions and approve the site plan. That prior to recording a plat for any phase, we would need to see homeowner association documents which would contain provisions consistent with this approval and include elements such as maintenance responsibilities that would fall on the association, a release of the city from liability due to any utility maintenance we might have to do on the property if that were to be applicable, language pertaining to common walls, and because there is no area set aside for the parking or storage of recreational vehicles, boats or campers, travel trailers, for instance, because there's no area set aside and screened for those things, those homeowners associated documents must prohibit such storage within the development. We will look for ADA compliance in terms of accessible parking as well.
Trevor?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm assuming I know what party walls means. That just is a certain thickness, I'm assuming, to prevent sound issues and things like that?
Yes, that's one of the things it does. The other is establishes who has responsibility along a a shared wall in terms of maintenance, if there were some work that would need to be done to those walls, sets up a mechanism so that owners would know what their responsibilities are and work together to get done what would need to get done.
Common in a zero lot line.
Condition E here, if you look at the plat, there is some area within the Zoo Parkway public right-of-way that is within the deed for the property. We would ask that the plat that's ultimately recorded for the project reflect the right-of-way for NC Highway 159 or Zoo Parkway. Prior to us issuing permits, if this application would be approved, the city will need to see detailed plans concerning water, including any provisions necessary for fire suppression or hydrants, as well as sanitary sewage plans that comply with the city's policies for such activity. If there are any easements that would be necessary to facilitate that utility service, that responsibility would be the property owners to have that surveying done and those documents prepared. Prior, again, to the issuance of a zoning compliance permit that would authorize construction, we would need to see the driveway permit from NCDOT as well as erosion control approval from the State Department of Environmental Quality. There has been correspondence with the DOT on this project. Many of you know that there is a potential project in the works at Ridge Street and Zoo Parkway that will improve that intersection. I believe it will signalize that intersection, if I'm not mistaken. That is a DOT project. They have said that this project, it'll be important for this project to match the construction plans for that project to make sure there's no conflict. So DOT is aware of this project, and there will be coordination with the designer and DOT on any type of site improvements to make sure there is no discrepancy in the roadway. Lastly, that prior to issuance of a permit, the property owner execute the memorandum of land use restriction to put future owners on notice of this approval. So with that said, again, you have a consistency statement to consider as well as a rezoning request, and there are folks here to speak on this tonight. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Nuttall? Okay, who's representing the applicant?
For the record, I'm Robert Will Hoyt, and my partner Darren Allen of the firm Will Hoyt Allen at 100 Sunset Avenue, Suite A, Asheboro, North Carolina. We're here on behalf of Darren Lucas, and Mr. Lucas had previously asked for a rezoning from R10 to the R7.5 conditional zoning for the planning board. He had proposed 16 units, 16 townhomes on that 2.5 acres. And after getting feedback from the planning board, that has been reduced to 14 townhome units on this property. As shown by Mr. Nuttall, this property is located, you're at, on Dixie Drive, just Dixie Drive, right there at the intersection where Hardee's and the Dunkin', the donut shop and everything, go right past CVS, down below something different, and it's down past the Citgo, and it's right below past Ridge Avenue. Darren Allen's going to show you a presentation of some of the site plan and showing the location of this property and another sister project.
As you guys can see from this map of countywide zoning, this, I'm sure everyone knows where this is located based on some of the prior pictures, but it's located off of Zoo Parkway in an area that, as Trevor mentioned, it's in your residential area. Looking back at the characteristics of the neighborhood, you can see it's very close to some existing commercial development. There's CVS, Salvation Army. As you start to go down this road, you'll see the shopping center there with the Citgo. And then the area we're looking at here is that area there that's kind of wooded. Approximately 2 acres that adjoins, 2.5 acres that adjoins Zoo Parkway. And you get another view from looking from Citgo. And This-
As you see the property, this is not a large project. This is not some 70-unit project. This is gonna be a 14 townhomes, basically 7 two-family home structures put there. There'll be a single entrance in. The DOT has been consulted, and we'll be reflecting that during this presentation. The project will be such that it will mirror a sister project that's in North Asheboro, and we'll be showing you that one in just a moment.
And this is another aerial view. You can see Ridge Street, which has several residences. There's the Citgo at the intersection with Zoo Parkway. That's immediately north of this proposed project. And then south of the project, this is an area, when there's a lot of, in the summer, you can't see much here, but it appears there's some outdoor storage at the southern end of the property. The proposed rezoning, I know Trevor went over this, but the R10 and R7.5 districts are very, very similar. In fact, if you look at the definitions, and I know there are differences in the density requirements, but the language used in the definition section of each is very, very similar. Obviously, in this case, we are submitting this before the board as a conditional district, proposed conditional district, which would allow the board some input, the community some input in addressing community concerns. And in looking at the proposed plan, one thing that we have in this case, just like in the proposal that we had several months ago, there's actually already an existing development that's pretty much has identical specs that was by the same developer. And this is up north of town. And you can actually see, I believe there may be a slight difference in the number of driveways adjoining the residences, but the homes themselves are essentially identical to the specs of the proposed project on Zoo Parkway.
This is located up near Kiwanis, across from Kiwanis Park. There's First Assembly, and this is a larger area of land, but the project's going to be basically identical, whereby you're going to have townhomes, parking spaces out front, and there will be landscaping and plenty of vegetation. Mr. Lucas has done this project, and the project is well received. This is going to be on a little smaller scale on Zoolin Parkway. There's going to be only 7 actual units built together, so 14 instead of 16. But they'll be very basically built to these specs. As you see, there are parking spaces in front of each unit. There does not seem to be a parking issue in this complex. We don't think it'll be one. There'll be like 35 spaces provided on the proposed rezoning.
And looking at the site map here, since the planning board's consideration, there's been a number of the community concerns that we've attempted to address in the proposal before you today. One of those would be having some technical difficulties here. The density, which is reduced. I may just skip that. The creation of additional buffers or clarification of buffers. And then, as always, in every rezoning request, you always have members of the community that are concerned about the traffic situation. So, first, addressing the issue of the density, as already mentioned, the prior submitted plan actually included an additional unit of 2 homes at that location there. This would reduce the density of that area, reduce the number of cars that'd be traveling in and out of the area. So the density concerns are addressed more in this plan. Now regarding the buffer, I know this was not clarified in the prior plan submitted, but you can see there are a number of residential homes to the north, and there's the additional lot that we talked about previously to the south that would be affected by this. The proposed plan here includes clarification of the buffer for, I know it's difficult to see from this angle, but there would be, in addition to the existing vegetation, when necessary, there would be additional Leland cypress buffers and hedges and bushes every 5 feet for the bushes and 10 feet for the trees. And addressing the issue or the concerns about traffic, as all of you are aware, if the Department of Transportation does not issue a driveway permit, this project doesn't proceed. So they will address that, but as Trevor mentioned, there's already been discussions with DOT. by the city staff, and apparently Mickey Pate sent this email. He indicated there's not any anticipation of any need for additional improvements unless there are any changes that are inconsistent with the proposed changes to Zoo Parkway. And
basically, what Mr. Lucas wants you just to understand is, having heard the comments from the planning board about the density, he did take steps to reduce it. I believe, based on current zoning, he could put approximately 10 townhomes on that property as we speak. He's only asking you to allow 4 more.
10 units, yeah. 10 units.
10 units plus, well, 10, but plus 4 more would be 14 units is what he's asking. It'd be basically 2 more buildings there. And it seems to me that with the current vegetation, with the Leland cypress are going to be placed in there, the only thing we would definitely ask for some flexibility is if he runs into some rock, be able to work with your planning department. If you need to move a building 5 or 10 feet one way due to rock, it would not increase the size of the development. It would just get it where they could actually put a foundation.
The letter, communication you had there from Mr. Pate with NCDOT, I believe I recognize confirming that project number is the Ridge Avenue intersection improvements to
Yes, sir.
to improve that intersection traffic flow.
We only have one copy of that email, physical copy, but we'd be glad to pass that out if you need that. But I know that,
Well, that number's on the transportation improvement program for the Piedmont Triad RPO, not sure. I thought I saw that. Thank you.
any other questions?
The proposed conditions are acceptable to the applicant.
We do, yes.
At this point, I'd like to call Mr. H.R. Gallimore up to discuss any impact on surrounding real estate.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I've been asked to speak just a bit about this project and real estate market in general. We did a little research this morning on Triad MLS, and with the 27203 zip code, which is the primary zip code in Asheboro, there were 7 properties for sale. 7. All price ranges, all properties. That's in the 27203 zip code. I wanted to further comment, and I'm sure you guys are aware you've approved all of these, or your constituents have in the past, starting with Lexington Commons, Williams Creek, Windermere East and West, Sherwood Oaks, Walker Terrace, Old Town Village, and I'm going to stop there, and there's many more. What we found is that a good and well-maintained townhome community, you looked at Zoo Parkway tonight, they asked for the improvement, or you taking over the road. These have not only done well in communities, they have, if anything, enhanced the communities and taken properties many times that could not have been developed and made them viable properties. I will say, I think the fact that we have 7 units available for sale right now in 27203, I think it'd be safe to say, we've known this for a while, that we have a critical housing shortage. And not just in Asheboro, but the entire county. There are a number of things going on which you guys should be real proud of. I certainly am. Many projects, many things going on. Some of them have been mentioned tonight. And it's going to continue to facilitate the need for more housing. Had a lady call me this week and said she sold her home. And she said, I need a place to go. And she said, I didn't realize. She had nowhere to go. She's panicking. She should, because it's that difficult to find a property today. I have a number of rental properties I own. 0 vacancy. Hadn't had a vacancy in 2 years. Not in 2 years. So we do have the need. I did listen to the applicant here tonight. It looks like he's done what I like to do, checked with DOT, worked diligently with the staff at the city. And I would like to say that if there is any opposition, we'd like to leave this open to answer that moving forward tonight. Any questions for me?
Questions?
In conclusion, Mr. Lucas.
He's always got to get the last word. Don't think nothing of it.
Earning any money.
Mr. Lucas, if there's any questions of him concerning development, I think as you saw from our presentation, the development he did up in North Asheboro should reflect what he's planning to do here.
You're concluded. That's it. Okay. This is public hearing. Sir, this is your opportunity to address council.
Thank you for calling me up. Again, Mr. Mayor, I'm Richard Cavaness and members of the council. This is a plot that was used at the planning and zoning meeting. And there's one extra house on here. And I was totally unaware of that change, that kind of, and may I approach?
Sure.
I got something here that I have just, I don't understand.
They've given us a new map.
Okay, well, my lot is 294 feet.
All right, you are the lot directly to the south of this property. Okay.
The corner stake of that property is right here. My lot is 294 feet. If I understand it correctly, behind my lot, that's in the county.
I don't know exactly where the city limits run through there, but I would assume you're probably exactly right, because
I don't know, I just saw this.
this back here, this is what you're talking about. You're right here. You're here.
All right, these are the houses on the ridge. Behind those properties, that's the county.
That's right.
Yep.
Okay, part of this, half of this property right here is in the county. Two hundred some odd feet of it.
Now, this property's not in the county.
Back here, this part back here is in the county. These are the properties on Ridge Avenue.
Where's Trevor?
See, my land is,
Yeah, your land's right here. Yeah, we need
I
to
can
use
assure
this
you
map.
my lot is 294 feet.
This
To
property's
right
in
here.
our zoning jurisdiction.
Huh?
It's in our zoning jurisdiction.
Okay, but
We'll let Trevor, would you?
Just,
hold
All
on
right,
a second.
you can put this map up. We're not using that map anymore. And you're right here, 294 feet, right there.
yeah.
All right?
on the screen,
Rezone it,
Mayor.
that'll make this be in the city.
On the screen here, any color that shows up on this screen is within the city of Asheboro's
Right
land
now.
use jurisdiction right now.
Correct. Not
The,
way
whi-
I see it.
the white areas, that letter G and letter F on the screen are areas that are outside of the city's jurisdiction.
Well,
Now,
I think
that doesn't necessarily mean it's in the city limits. It means it's in our ETJ.
okay, are the streets and curb and everything on that development, are they gonna have to comply with the city or not comply at all?
Comply with city. That's what we're talking about right now.
So when they rezone it, it'll make that be city.
It's all, this particular property is already within the city limits, and it's already has to comply with the city zoning requirements.
See here, my lot is 294 feet. Coming back, this is the property over here we're talking about. All right, you're talking about 277 and 294 or something like that. See, half of that new development is back here. If you go down Ridge, the property behind those houses on Ridge are in the county.
All right.
Correct.
Half of this right here is in the
Hammond,
county.
do you have your pointer?
Yeah, well, it's
All
not
right.
gonna do well on the screen.
Show him on the map there.
I'm not gonna be able to do that on the screen, I don't think. Again, white areas county, there's areas that look a little different in terms of color. They look a little darker.
Show him E. Point out E.
If you look at,
E is your lot.
E is, yes. If you look at G, and if you look due north, you see that shade, there's kind of a dotted pattern on
Yeah.
HI.
Anybody like it?
Those areas that are dotted are actually outside of the city's limits, city corporate limits, but within the city's zoning jurisdiction. So Asheboro has jurisdiction over certain properties outside of the city limits, and that's what this refers.
We have authority to zone those properties and regulate those dotted properties he just pointed out.
All right, well, I just saw that, I wasn't
Alright.
sure.
So
All right.
the A is the property we're talking about, and all of A is in the city limits.
All right, the other thing is, I brought this up to the planning and zoning, at the south corner of that property, the state is talking about widening, Zoo Parkway.
Right.
And, I just talked to the city and to the, DOT engineer this afternoon. I talked to one in Aberdeen or somewhere, and he said they were talking about putting a roundabout up there at intersection of Ridge and Z Parkway. Fellow I talked to this evening, he said, no, he said,
It'll be a signalized intersection.
2024, they still talking about widening the road. And we feel like with the sports complex and everything going on at Zoo Park, at, the Parkway Plaza and all that down below us down there, we're gonna have an awful lot of traffic. And, with the people coming out this drive, and that drive is gonna be right in the proximity of where that corner, where they're gonna widen the road. All that's gonna take place right about where the entrance is to this, development. So we feel like that this is really gonna put a lot of pressure on those people coming in and out, gonna cause a lot of congestion right there at that intersection,
And that's why DOT's gonna hang a stoplight there.
man said today there wasn't gonna be no stoplight.
Well, they're telling us it's probably a stoplight.
Huh?
Well, he and I both live on Zoo Parkway, or in a development right.
Well, I just asked him a while ago, and he said it's gonna be, extra lane and no stoplight. So I don't know. There's no telling what to bet. This is supposed to happen in 2024, beginning or ending or whatever in 2024.
They're definitely gonna widen down through there.
They'll have to do something.
There's gonna be a turning lane.
The proposed plan, the new map here, the proposed plan, does actually show the driveway, and it's specifically, this letter we just had up on the screen said that they need to collaborate with the DOT to make sure their driveway permit and the DOT's widening and the connection between the two is in the appropriate place.
Okay. Well,
But,
we just feel like it's gonna be a lot of congestion right there.
well, you're probably right. With the zoo connector, in my opinion, and Mr. Moffitt and I both live down the hill there, with the zoo connector taking a lot of zoo traffic, it can't be any worse than what you've been living with for the last.
Well, we've had a lot of traffic in the past, but when they put in the 64 loop, we don't have the tour buses and the
Well, that's what I'm
activity
talking about,
buses and
yeah.
stuff. They're all going down to the main entrance of the zoo, but we feel like this sports complex, they're gonna be playing all kinds of sports down there, and we just feel like there's gonna be a lot of traffic coming up there going to get them a hamburger.
We would love to think.
There'll be traffic. Let me give you a little heads up on how that works.
It'll come off
Most of the games played are played in front of family and friends and grandparents and whatnot, and when that game's over, they leave. Other people are coming in on another field, another game, whatever. People are coming and going all day long, unlike the zoo where everybody got there between 8:30 and 12 and then left at 5 o'clock. That was our problem with the zoo traffic and backing up 3 miles down the highway because everybody left at the same time. The sportsplex won't be quite like that. People will be
Well,
coming and going.
I want to share some numbers.
With all the lights they're putting up down there and all those fields, it look like it will be playing night and day down there.
Well, they'll be playing into the evening.
Yep.
There's 8 fields.
We have 8 fields, and we have 14 townhomes here. We took 700,000 cars a year off the road.
With
The
the loop. Well, we can tell that, I mean, we don't have the big tour buses and activity buses like we used to.
That's got to
I'd
do
love to
better.
think the soccer fields would be that popular, but I don't see it.
It used to be every time there's a tour bus went down the road, there'd be a string of vans and then personal cars right in behind it. And then the same thing in the
And
evening.
lots of times, 3 or 4 buses
Yeah.
before you get to the vans and the personal cars.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, the school groups and whatnot headed to the zoo. Most of that traffic's going around the loop now. The best thing I can say about the Sportsplex is that people come and go all day.
Yeah.
They don't all leave at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And they're
So-
close to the bypass down there. That's
And
where
many
we're
of them will go out the zoo connector back to the bypass and head on back home.
Well, I guess on the GPS or whatever, people traveling by that, I guess it's on the GPS to go in down to the main entrance of the zoo is, reason all that traffic's come off of our road. Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate your comments, and you stand to be most affected because you are the closest neighbor. I think Mr. Lucas has a proven track record of building a nice project and keeping his projects, keeping them well-maintained and nice, and I don't think you'll have a particular problem, but I will tell you, if you do, you come see us at the city, and we'll talk to Mr. Lucas and make sure that we do what we can to keep peace in the neighborhood.
Well, I really appreciate that. I really do. I thank you for that comment. And, he's gonna leave a 10-foot buffer on each side, leave the natural, things, the trees and stuff that's there already, so, yeah, everything looks good on that, but.
It's gonna be a nice development.
Our main concern was about the traffic and the congestion that, I mean, that remains to be seen, I guess.
I guess. Thank you, Mr. Cavanagh. I
Thank you.
appreciate your patience with us tonight.
I apologize for jumping the gun while ago.
No, it's all right. You didn't know. I invited people who wanted to speak to the council to stand up and speak. All right. Is anyone else in the room that would like to address council on this request? All right, council, what are your wishes?
Mayor, based on the staff's statement of consistency, I would recommend that we approve the conditional zoning subject to the stated conditions that are suggested by staff and amenable to the applicant.
All right, we have a motion to approve this request made by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second? Second. Second, Mr. Moffett. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Stay in touch with us, Mr. Cavanagh. All right. Item 5C is case RZ 22-08. Is an application to rezone property at 1352 East Salisbury Street from OA6 to OA6 CZ condition. Okay. Zoning for business, professional, and personal services in an overflow parking area. Have at it, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This is somewhat complicated application, at least based on what's written. I think it'll make sense once we go through it. But there are actually several different things happening with this application. So we are looking at a request that would take some property from an existing office and apartment zoning district to a conditional OA6 or office and apartment. I'm sorry, did I get the wrong one? Did I get you all the wrong?
This is Cedar.
I got 200 lots and no parking lots.
That's not
Wrong map.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I was like, wow, that's a big change.
I think that's number six.
Just hold on for that one.
That's number 6, yeah.
Hold on to that.
Like, I'm expecting a little small lot and a fence.
Was that Brian Thomas?
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be the next case. I'm sorry about that. Let's try this again.
I don't need this one either.
Yeah, here's good old Hiram J.
All right, let's start again. So this, again, several different things happening on this application. One, taking the property to a conditional zoning, OA6 on a part of the project. We also have included in this application a request to rezone property from R10 to a conditional zoning office and apartment district. And then we have a request to amend the existing industrial zoning, conditional zoning at 1420 East Salisbury Street. We have a request to modify that district that council had previously approved due to some changes in the site plan for that development. The applicant on this request is the owner, Ken and Bridget Gallimore. There are 3 addresses included within this request, 1352 and 1420 East Salisbury Street, as well as 342 Patton Avenue. Again, just to try to make clear, 3 different zoning requests here, an amendment to an existing industrial zoning district, a request to take property from R10 General District Residential to a conditioned office and apartment district, and then thirdly, a request to take property from a general OA6 office and apartment to an amended conditional zoning OA6 district. There are 3 parcels in this application. We're looking at just over 6 acres in size. Currently, there are 2 single-family structures, as well as a new motor vehicle repair major use that permits sales and rental of domestic motor vehicles as well. For the record, staff has published, mailed, and properly posted the notice of the hearing this evening. This is a general overview of the area. The subject parcels involved in this request are outlined in blue. Again, the red areas identify commercial zoning. Purple areas on this map are current industrial districts, and any yellow areas are residentially zoned property. So again, a mixture of land uses and zoning and things happening in this area of the city. On this map, any property identified under A1, A2, and A3 are included in this application. Any other property identified is an adjoining owner who would have received notification of this hearing. Just to try to keep things straight, the property identified as A2 is, you see that purple color, that's the existing industrial district. That is the part of the application that would amend a current conditional zoning industrial district. The A3 is the property that would go from single-family residential to a conditioned OA6 district, and then A1, you see that's already blue. It would put that property into a conditioned OA6 district and be bound by the approval here this evening, as well as the site plan and those commitments that are made on that plan. This is a topographic and utility map for the area. You can see we do have utilities as well as a force main in the vicinity that can serve 2 of the 3 properties relatively easily. The other property on Patton Avenue would require some sort of sewer and water extension to bring service to that property. You can see Asheboro Mall to the east of the subject properties and the various land uses occurring in the neighborhood. This is a site plan before the council. You'll see the body shop, Gallimore Body Shop, which is what council approved an application for that project in 2000. It has since been built. The primary purpose of including that property in the request this evening is because Gallimores are requesting access onto Patton Avenue to serve that commercial use that the previous plan had not contemplated or shown. So we need to get that in front of the council so that if NCDOT were to authorize that connection, because NCDOT maintains Patton Avenue, that the zoning district would allow such a connection to be made. The other reason for including that property is that there, if you've been out there, and we have some pictures I'll show, the project has been concluded. There is a dumpster to the rear of that building. Typically, the city requires some sort of dumpster screening or enclosure. Based on the lay of this property and how it was developed, the applicant believes it's challenging to get a dumpster screening on that property and still maintain access and maneuvering area for sanitation services. So included in with this application is to allow the dumpster to remain as it's been located out there behind the building, largely unseen from Salisbury Street and not very well seen from Patton Avenue unless you're directly looking at for it in that location. So that's why that application, the application includes that. On the south there, you'll see the existing, on the next property, the existing structure formerly used as a residence. You'll see there is a small driveway with handicap accessible parking that would be provided to serve some sort of business or professional services use if this application is approved. So the application would intend to upfit that building for some sort of small professional or business services type of use, provide the necessary handicap accessible parking in front and to the side of the structure, and then you'll see some parking on the west side of Patton Avenue that would provide additional parking to serve that office use. As we move across to that area of where that parking is, you'll see a fenced enclosure area. The applicant is requesting permission to construct a storage or an overflow lot that would serve the body shop. That's across the street. The plan does show a screening as typically is required by the city for such storage type of uses. You'll also see along Patton Avenue landscaping proposed to comply with the city's commercial landscaping standards. As we move further north on this property towards Salisbury Street, you'll see another gray outline of another existing structures formerly used as a dwelling and associated parking that would be constructed to serve an additional small business or professional services type of use. Access for this structure would come via a new driveway that is pushed west on East Salisbury Street away from Patton Avenue and eliminate the existing driveway that serves that house that's right at the intersection of Patton Avenue, which would not be suitable for non-residential traffic such as this. So that this plan contemplates DOT permitting requirements and safety standards to get that driveway moved to serve this project if the zoning is approved. That, I believe, covers everything on this site plan. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. As we look at photos, this is 1420. This is the recently constructed Gallimore Body Shop. This is defined as existing major motor vehicle repair and rental sales of domestic vehicles. This is the structure at 1352 East Salisbury Street. You can see in the middle of the picture the Patton Avenue, which is rising between the body shop and this house. The driveway that would serve this is just probably to the right of, or towards the right of this picture, where a driveway would be brought in and serve parking for this office. This is the rear of that same structure. The driveway that would be eliminated is this gravel driveway that does go out all the way to East Salisbury Street. This is a view from Patton Avenue. You can see both the existing R10 zone property that's to the right on this photo. You can't see the house, I don't believe, and you can see a portion of the body shop operation further up Patton Avenue. This is a view looking west at the subject parcel along East Salisbury Street.
And that's the engineering firm.
This is, yes, this is an adjacent engineering DRMP's office. This is considered also a professional services type of office. So what is being requested with this application would be similar in scope to this property.
And then the previous picture, about 2 pictures back, right there in the background, all those white pickup trucks, that's the field personnel for DRMP. That's not, that's just the neighbor.
Correct, that's correct. This is the East Salisbury Street entrance into the mall. And now we are looking south along Patton Avenue. Patton Avenue is largely outside of the city limits, and the roadway is state maintained. And this is the intersection of Patton and East Salisbury Street. In this photo, you can see the structure that's included with this request off to the right. That is a structure that, if approved, could be converted to an office type of use. Staff's analysis on this application is that portion of this request, 1420 East Salisbury Street, and the northern portion of 1352 East Salisbury Street is in the city limits. Other portions of this property are in the city's ETJ, but outside of the corporate limits, which means if there were to be utilities requested to serve any of those properties that are outside, that would require annexation into the city limits. Again, East Salisbury Street is maintained considered a minor thoroughfare. Patton Avenue is more of a collector level road. Both are state maintained. The description of the requested districts is identified in number 3. We've included both the OA6 description as well as the I2 description on the slide. This is recaps what is proposed with this application. I believe I've covered all this in my previous remarks. Patton Avenue, as you've noticed, while it is state maintained, it is only 15 to 16 feet in width. NCDOT previously, when we've had discussions, said there may be a need for improvements or additional right-of-way on Patton Avenue as part of that driveway permitting process. That's still to be determined. That will go through the typical DOT permitting process. But there has been discussions with the state about this desire for additional access onto Patton Avenue. And I'll note in 6, we do know that the location of the parking at 1352 East Salisbury Street is just slightly divergent from what the typical ordinance requirement is due to its location within a front yard setback for the property. There are conditions, there will be some additional landscaping that the staff proposed to allow that deviation to remain consistent with the city's intent of its development rules. In terms of the proposed land use map, this is identified on that plan as both urban residential and appropriate for office and institutional use. With the 2020 rezoning to industrial, the plan actually considers via state law the industrial district to be also part of the future land use recommendations. So within the central small area plan, again, part of its primary growth, part of the properties adjacent, developed, and outside the city limits. Overall, when we consider goals and policies regarding this request, we believe there are 3 that tend to be supportive. There are 2 that are not supportive of this application. The staff's analysis on this is that given we have an existing industrial conditioned district for the uses that are occurring there, we don't believe that the request to amend that district to allow a secondary driveway and change the buffering requirements or the dumpster location and dumpster screening is unreasonable given how the property has been developed. We think the transitional nature of the area and mixture of current uses in the vicinity gives validity to a request for a conditioned OA6 district, provided that there's adequate landscaping and screening installed. That's the purpose of this conditional zoning application, to show that that is sufficiently addressed. Therefore, this comes to you with a positive recommendation from both the planning board and the staff, subject to the uses, the use conditions and zoning conditions that are proposed here. First one identifies the specific uses that would be permissible under the district. The second one, as everybody's agreeable, both now and into the future, of abiding by those restrictions. That the current zoning conditions and site improvement requirements for the body shop at 1420 East Salisbury Street shall remain in effect, with the exception of the dumpster screening requirement for a dumpster or dumpsters located to the rear of that building, and that a new driveway shall be permitted to Patton Avenue if authorized by NCDOT. The third component of that I didn't mention, at the time that 1420 East Salisbury Street was approved, the Gallimores did not own that house that's a part of this application to the south, and therefore there was a requirement under the city zoning code to install a buffer from against that residential use to the south and the body shop. With the Gallimores now owning that property, they have requested, and staff thinks it's reasonable to eliminate any need for a buffering against property they also own. D covers the landscaping that will occur on at 1352 East Salisbury Street to screen that parking area a little more than would typically be required due to its location. E, all front yard landscaping, building and parking separation, and parking maneuver area shall comply with the city's zoning standards. We'll probably need a little bit more detail as the Gallimores or a future owner moves forward into the construction phase of this project. This is has all the information we need. We'll need a little bit more information when they're ready to move forward with the project. That's what E covers. Under F, if there are changes, some additional things that they would like to do to this plan that are otherwise permitted in terms of lighting or new mechanical equipment locations, that they share that information with the staff to ensure zoning compliance. There is some landscaping that's shown against the Cranford property. If you look at the site plan, it may be that due to the site constraints and the limited area to work with, that a fence may be a better solution to provide that screening. And so this condition is intended to afford flexibility to be able to use a fence instead of landscaping. The final one is, as we always do, requiring the execution of the memorandum of land use restriction. With that said, that concludes my remarks, and those are your two action items. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any questions for Mr. Noble?
Trevor, I do have one.
Sure.
And as it's currently proposed, I understand the Gallimores own the property, but the conditional zoning proposed on Patton Avenue with A3, the current residence.
Yes.
That would not be compliant with parking absent the lots or the spaces which are not part of that parcel.
Correct.
But which are across the street. So
Correct.
in the event that that should change hands, I guess we need to make some allowance that parking would have to go with that zone.
Sure.
In some form or fashion, otherwise we'd have a non-conforming use that we would approve.
Yeah, I agree. The expectation is that this project continue to work together per the site plan. Certainly, I agree if there were to be a change in the ownership structure that would eliminate that as a possibility, then there should be some steps taken for easements or, access for that parking to serve that. Yes.
I understand it's all under
Sure.
one umbrella now, but.
It's a good
avoid,
something to get on the record.
conflict, and,
Yes, sir.
we need to address that.
I've seen that sort of verbiage in the CO for a particular use is only valid with the additional parking, because we've looked at them where that parking is actually leased.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that comment, because when we go to this zoning permit and the site plan stage, we can ensure that notation is included.
Anyone in the audience who would like to address council regarding this request?
I'm back.
I see that.
I'm at it again. I represent Ken and Bridget Gallimore in this request, and let me kind of tell you how we got to where we are. I think you'll agree he did a nice job with the shop that he's built on the corner of Patton and Salisbury. And then later he got to buy the Kearns house, which we'll call it, that front Salisbury Street. And then the folks, unfortunately, both parties, it was a father and a son and his mother both passed away in the house behind. They asked if he wanted to buy it. He thought it made sense since they're doing a mechanical endeavor there. It might be smart if they own that property as well. And then that brought up more conversation. And so the first thing we did, I went to Trevor and on Ken and Bridget's behalf and said, how do we make this work? And so the first thing we needed was a good comprehensive site plan, and Hy Marziano did a pretty good job of drawing this. You can tell that's his work, I'm sure. And there were some concerns, DOT being one. Patton's an air street. So one thing that we readily agreed to in the beginning and thought it was a good thing to do, I shouldn't say agreed, we went ahead and decided to move that driveway on the Salisbury house as far to the west as is deemed reasonable. That takes some pressure off of traffic near that Patton Avenue location. One of the things we didn't do in the last conditional use request was have any continuity to cross Patton from the existing mechanical shop over to that large area that frankly has been created with all the dirt they moved. And that's an ideal place to do surplus inventory, and it should be shielded, and that's in the remarks that I think you saw today. Lighting has come up, and if Ken and Bridget do any lighting, they're going to secure Duke Energy and lease that. And as I understand it from the city, normally Duke Energy gets all those permits, make sure that they're compliant with all the rules and regulations as it requires, as it relates to lighting. The dumpster has come up. It sits right behind the building, very close to the building. You can't see it from the mall side. I don't think that kudzu's ever going anywhere, do you guys? Doesn't appear to be. It's been there a long time. You can't see it from Salisbury Street, and you got to really look hard at Patton to see that dumpster. Plus, when you start trying to screen them, it makes it a little harder for sanitation to dump those things. So it looks pretty good now. I'm sure most of you have ridden by it anyway. It doesn't create a problem. We don't think it does. Mr. Bell, you make an interesting comment. If this house were to ever be sold later, your parking just went away. And we really worked hard on that parking because there's not enough room. You can put a couple of handicaps out front, but it doesn't leave room for anything else. And fortunately, the city does allow if it's across the street, but you make an interesting point. There needs to be something to guarantee that in the future. So I agree with that. I think Ken would agree with that as well, Ken and Bridget. So at that point, I feel like we worked real hard. We did meet before zoning department, and we had several people with city staff, along with the engineer, myself and Ken, met early in this trying to put every piece together to make as much sense as possible. As Patton is narrow, we know that, and we said all along, and DOT has been contacted on this, DOT trumps anything we do here. The reason for the cutovers between the two is when we work with DOT, we don't have to come back on the site plan and ask for that to change. But DOT will prevail with their requirements on that. I think that's got it. Hope you're happy with what's happened so far, and I just think I would like to say I think it'll get better. Any questions? I'd like to leave it open if there's any opposition to answer any questions someone might have.
All right. Anybody else in the audience who would like to address council regarding this request? Come on up, Mr. Price.
Excuse me. No way I'm giving you a whole big lecture. But as they were already speaking, that the Patton Avenue is really, really small. And we've come through there with hearses and stuff like this, and you barely got to run off the road to keep from hitting somebody. Now, I realize that everything that Gallimore is doing is right there at Salisbury. But, you know, when you start taking Patton Avenue going on down through there, there's not enough room. And, you know, when you start widening the road, them people, they're right there on the road anyway. And so, you know, how y'all gonna deal with that? I mean, you can't hardly turn in there if it's another car, if there's another car that's not way over to the left or way over to the right. If you get right there at that stop sign, somebody's gonna have to stop in the road to let somebody in or out or something like that because it's nowhere near as wide enough.
North Carolina DOT is supposed to widen that road relative to the traffic count.
And,
Clearly, they've been delinquent in that duty.
I'd say.
and for the record, just tell us where you work and because you made the comment about the hearses and whatnot, just.
Okay, well, 1353 East Salisbury is Gail's Funeral Home.
And you work for Gail's
And,
Funeral Home?
Well, I'm part of that,
Yeah,
I'm in there
okay.
now, so. But I'm saying, that,
Yeah.
that's always the lane that
It's a
we
narrow
take to
street. I
go.
go through there often.
Thanks, sir, yeah.
There was a comment in Mr. Nuttall's presentation that there was an opinion, I think, by DOT that the street would probably need to be widened. Did I misinterpret that?
You did not, that's what I heard as well.
Okay. And as you've heard me say, in other cases up here, it's DOT's responsibility to keep the streets, wide enough and, in shape to handle whatever traffic is on those streets. So, as this moves forward, we'll push DOT a little bit to, see about improving Patton.
Well, is there a way that you can make sure that they fix Peyton Avenue before they,
It's not in the city limits, right? So, with them, it's pretty much we can express our concern and suggest it.
Secondary road plan.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the right-of-way looks like through there, but we are aware that it's a abnormally narrow street.
I just think it need to be looked at, and if y'all gonna approve it, somebody needs to figure out a way to get that road done something too before they do that, because, they do great work. I've had them do work for me before, and I appreciate it. But I'm just saying, that Patton Avenue is just too small.
I can't speak for the highway department or the Gallimores, but I can share with you this. In circumstances like this, if you look on this drawing, it showed a 30-foot right-of-way. They need 50 to widen that road properly. And usually where you run into your challenges is right-of-way acquisition. That's building the road is nothing. But I feel like that if there was if the highway department would do what they're supposed to do, and right-of-way acquisition was not an issue, they'd be a whole lot quicker to come do that, and we can certainly inquire about that from the parties that are there.
And the fact that the applicant owns both sides of the road there.
That's what I'm saying.
Makes it a little easier to get the right-of-way.
This is an unusual accommodation that we can certainly inquire for you about.
All right, I appreciate it, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
Follow-up comments, if I might.
The Gallimore family gonna widen that road for us?
What we're hoping to do is annex it, because that's his intention, but that would be after this is spoken about. His intention is to annex. Everything else he has there is annexed, and that was his intention, so then it'll be your road, David. But the point I wanted to make, this will probably not be much traffic going across it. It's different than going up and down it. They may bring some things back and forth, which is much superior to coming around on Salisbury and coming up and coming in. So to us, it's a safety standpoint, but you make a valid point, Walker makes a valid point. All of this is subject to DOT approval. DOT does hold the cards in that regard.
And if they needed some right-of-way to widen the road, I'm certain they could ride with something with you.
I'm sure there could be an arrangement made. Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, real briefly, in light of Mr. Bell's comment about the need for that parking to serve the house and Mr. Gallimore's acknowledgement, I do think it'd be helpful to add a condition that stipulates that at the zoning compliance permit stage, that there is, that isn't taken into account on the site plan that the city receives for final permitting for the project, noting that parking is necessary to serve that office across the street. And so we would propose that as an additional condition.
All right, so Mr. Gallimore, one or the other, need to understand that additional condition and tell us for the record that you do accept that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Mayor, based on the staff's consistency statement and the presentation, I move that we approve the conditional zoning changes as proposed, subject to the conditions that were stated in the staff report with the additional conditions proposed relative to the parking zoning requirements, which are amenable to the applicant.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Nuttall, you're still up. Subdivision sketch design review for Thomas Estates Phase 3.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thankfully, you all already have the plan in front of you. This is a sketch design request for approval. As you know, this is the first step in the city's three-step process for subdivision review and approval. So this, in essence, is the concept or the master plan that is proposed for this project. The applicant on this request is the property owner, Brian Thomas. Again, this is a sketch design. What you're reviewing is a conventional subdivision. So we've talked about planned unit developments tonight. This is a traditional subdivision with meeting the minimum lot size requirements of the city's current zoning district. It's a part of one Randolph County PIN, just over 13 acres in size. If you count those lots, there should be 38 total. Average lot size, 3/10 of an acre. This property is going to look very familiar to you. You've seen it on several different occasions. We started with a planned unit development for a townhome project, which is on the screen referred to as Thomas Estates. That was a conditional zoning R10. That required a rezoning from the council to approve that project. That was granted. To the east, you see Phase 1 and Phase 2. Council actually reviewed that at your meeting last month. That was a portion of the property that currently is zoned R10 and proceeded with the sketch design review and approval for that part. We're now looking at the final portion of this property, which is outlined in red on the screen, and will be referred to as Phase 3. So topographic and utility map. As with a lot of this property, especially in this portion of the county, we have some terrain challenges that need to be overcome. That affects utility layouts as well as site grading and how you can cut streets in to serve the property. On this map, you'll see the green and black line. That is the city's existing force main to the landfill. You won't see any other blue or green lines on this plan. To make any of these projects or phases work, there will be a significant extension of city water and sewer to serve not only the townhome project, but all of the phases and development of this property. So this will bring water and sewer to the area. Unlike other portions of this property, while we do have a stream that does flow through the property, there is no 100-year regulated floodplain on this portion. The plan before you is up on the screen. We've noted in red really what you should be paying more attention to on this plan. We've called out the Phase 1 and Phase 2, which again was previously reviewed and approved. Those are important, especially that first phase is important because it will provide the necessary access to Phase 3 from Old Cedar Falls Road. And you can see there's a side street that turns off of that main road that comes in and will serve this portion of development. That Woodpecker Drives is a secondary access to serve this section as well. This roadway, Starling Lane, is proposed to end in a temporary turnaround at the northern boundary of the property. That would allow the potential for the road to be extended into the future if that is desired by the property owner. We have tried, as we always do, we look for potentials for future connections that would facilitate future development and integrate a street network to serve the residents. We've had quite a bit of discussion about the viability of an eastern stub with a temporary turnaround that could serve that property. The engineer on this project has told us, and there is merit to this, that the grading on this site that will be necessary to develop pads and building envelopes for this will make any type of connection to that east very difficult. And so they provided supporting documentation just showing under what the current topography is in terms of change in elevation and grades that would be required prior to grading. And so we do agree that there will be some challenges if we were to require an eastern sub, and the potential for that to actually be of use in the future. So the plan does not propose any type of eastern connection, but it does include that northerly connection that could be extended and would be helpful in the future. Again, this is a conventional subdivision. We do not require sidewalks as a part of conventional subdivision. The code does not require that. They are required, as you know, in the planned unit development projects. This is a project that does not require any type of zoning review. Zoning is in place to permit this project. Access does come through phase 1 of the adjoining property. There is no connection, as you saw from the plan, to the townhome project further to the west. This has gone through the city review points. Any comments that the departments have been addressed by the engineer. We do note, again, under 1 on the planning, that limitation in terms of easternly stub or for future connection. We'd like to point out that this is approaching 100 dwellings that will be served by an existing roadway into the development. It is something that is permissible under the city's development code as well as the state fire code as it's written and adopted by the city. So this plan is compliant in terms of emergency service and access. We've shared this plan with the Department of Transportation, the post office as well, and Asheboro City Schools. DOT did respond, as they did with the previous phase 1 section, that there'll be driveway permitting requirements or maybe roadway improvements required that will be initiated with the first phase. So by the time this project happens, those improvements should be occurring. And we will look closely at the fire hydrant locations in consultation with the fire department at the second, if this gets to the second stage, at the preliminary plat. So that is on our checklist of things to look for at the next round. We do recommend approval of this, subject to those notes, as did the planning board. And that concludes my remarks.
Questions? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve as presented.
I have a motion to approve by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nuttall. Okay, you're 7 also.
I'm almost done, Mayor.
7A, contracting budgeting issues associated with Industrial Park Avenue sidewalk.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Following the council meeting on June 28th, we have had significant conversations with the City Public Works Department about this RCC project. We do believe that there are other options available to the city to complete this project. And if you remember, the proposals we received for both the inspection services and the construction are over the budget. We think there's maybe a better option. So we do ask council to reject all bids related to this project.
Have a recommendation to reject these bids. May I have a motion to that effect? Or any questions of Mr. Nuttall first?
Mr. Mayor, based on staff's recommendation and their thorough evaluation, I make a motion that we reject all bids on the project.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to reject all bids. Thank you. 7B is grant funding for the Center City Garden.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update on this project. In order to move forward with the project, we anticipate working very soon with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council out of Kernersville to secure grant funding to implement the plan or some version of the plan that was prepared by Prospect Landscape Architecture, who had contracted with the city to do the preliminary design work on this project. I'll announce, I do think we can anticipate kind of a community workday on the property this fall to help generate community interest and let people know, the plans for the property and what the game plan moving forward is. In the meantime, we anticipate having the environmentals done on the property that are going to be necessary for any state or federal grant funding. So we think there's likely to be 4 or 5 potential sources for funding for this project. Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is one. There's a North Carolina 319 program, which is intended to reduce non-point source pollution. We have creek and wetlands on that property. We think that this project can be eligible for that funding. There's North Carolina Environmental Enhancement Grant Funding, which is a separate program which reimburses projects that improve North Carolina air, water, and land quality, and 2 other programs that we anticipate applying in the next calendar year. So we had a recent on-site meeting with environmental technicians from Piedmont Council. We discussed these funding programs and our goal of being ready to submit when those open up in the next cycle. And so we think will be competitive. The work that's already been done by the landscape architects will be very helpful in getting those applications done. So we're excited to move forward. We will have a series of applications in 2023 and look forward to announcing funding to begin that project.
Thank you, sir. I will say that I appreciate you, your staff, and Mr. Ogburn for getting this project moving again, and it would be nice to see it through to completion in the next year and a half or so.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard, 8A, Airport Lighting Rehab Project.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief update on the lighting project. Lighting on the northern portion of the taxiway has been completed, and crews are hoping to finish the southern portion of the taxiway tomorrow. That includes all the way up to the terminal building. They're anticipating the delivery of the new vault is scheduled for Monday, July 18th, and crews will begin installation of the let's see, you got the photos up? Okay. So this is the taxiway. This is a before picture and an after. You can see it's significantly brighter with the LEDs. They're anticipating the installation of the remaining lights on the runway along with the reel and PAPI lights. And this work will be performed at night, started beginning next week, and with a completion date hopeful for August 14th, 2022. Any questions?
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I was daydreaming there. 8B?
8B. Thank you.
Zoo City Sportsplex?
Yes, sir. You have in your packets change order number 5 between the City of Asheboro and Terry's Plumbing and Utilities. This work includes $940,953 of additional rock removal from the site. The estimated rock excavation was for 10,000 cubic yards, and we ended up encountering a total of approximately 24,500 cubic yards, most of which was in Phase 2. Additionally, this change order includes the construction of the restroom and concession stand for Phase 2, and all paving and concrete and other pertinent items to complete Phase 1. of the Sportsplex. This total increase for the contract, to the contract is for $2,674,019, with a time extension for the completion for August of 2023. Staff recommends approval of this change order number 5 by reference.
Thank you, sir. Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve by reference.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve by reference.
Have a motion by Mr. Moffett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Sawyer. Discussion. John, you got something?
I was gonna say, Mayor, looking back on what we did when we bought the additional property from
Pinewood Partners.
Pinewood Partners, then the additional property from the senior adults, that wound up being phase 1. Almost all this rock is in phase 2. And that's what we had the first bite at the apple, the first purchase, so. And we would've had no dirt to work with.
That's correct.
On that, because it was all rock. Turns out now we know why they were pasturing cows there.
Well,
With sore feet.
yeah. You know, and we did a lot of, rock, probing, prior to construction. You did a lot of test bores and whatnot.
This is Randolph County.
It's
When I was in
Randolph
that
County.
business,
Simply
I had
chose the
5
wrong
hoses and
spots.
5 rock drills.
And I can tell you part of what's gonna make this, what has made this an expensive and difficult project is exactly what's gonna make it one of the prettiest projects. The topography and the step down, the terracing, it's just gonna be so beautiful. But we're paying for it. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Are we still looking at a phase 1, grand opening sometime this fall, or?
I think we intend to open the whole thing maybe April or May, depending on how the winter weather is.
Okay, great.
We've already, council issued the purchase order for the turf of fields 2, 3, and 4. That'll probably be delivered in September, mid to
Yes, sir.
September, Michael, and
Yes,
go
sir.
down.
Any update on the fence availability?
Fence is in this change order.
Well, actually, that was in a previous change order. He's just
Oh.
waiting on it, yeah.
Here's what,
Waiting on the delivery.
I'm learning to appreciate what I'm now referring to as the distinctive patina.
Yeah.
You ever get your garage door?
Yes, both garage doors are up,
Okay, great.
And the right color.
and they're the right color, yes, sir.
All right, item 8C is proposed intersection improvements for Dixon and Dixon.
You have in your packets a drawing showing the proposed improvements. I'll pull that up now and showing the proposed improvements for Dixon Avenue and Dixon Street intersection. These improvements include installation of stop bars, which can be seen on the drawing, stop signs in both directions. Currently, I think it's only in one, and then a double yellow line through the intersection to delineate the lanes. This is just for information at this time.
All right, great. Any timeline on this? Any timeline on getting this done?
the
If council gives us direction to proceed, we can,
But the attorney will draft the ordinance, council approve the ordinance, and we'll install the
All right,
sign. And this comes out of the folks that were here last month, Mayor, the month before.
yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult intersection to navigate with that driveway right in the corner. So this should help you, Larry. Okay,
Mayor, did we get the?
we need to do the budget amendment for that.
oh, okay, I'm sorry, just overlooked that. We approved change order number 5, now you need a motion to, or you need to tell us about it.
I believe that'll be Ms.
Debbie, all right, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. In your packet is a budget amendment to amend the Zoo City Sportsplex Fund to incorporate the funding for change order number 5 in the amount of $2,674,019. These funds are in the general operating budget. There is already an appropriation of contribution from general operating funds to Zoo City Sportsplex for funding for the Zoo City Sportsplex. So the only amendment that is needed tonight is to amend the project fund, recognizing the revenue coming in and the expense. I recommend adoption by reference.
Have a recommendation to adopt by reference the budgetary amendment to account for the change order number 5.
Mayor, I move we approve the ordinance to amend the Zoo City Sportsplex Fund by reference.
I have a motion by Mr. Bell to approve by reference. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Moffett? Was that you?
Can be, yes.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was.
It was? Oh. All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries, and I apologize for overlooking that. Item 8D, proposed road closure at the eastern terminus of West Pritchard.
Thank you. You also have in your packets a drawing for your consideration showing the proposed closure of approximately 160 feet at the western terminus of East Pritchard Street, along with the construction of a T turnaround. This is for your consideration.
So Mayor, you remember several years ago, the road was closed. That connection with North Fayette was closed. With the property owner to the north and the property owner to the south of that remaining right-of-way have asked that we close that and return it to them. There's a proposed turnout right there so the garbage truck and fire truck and UPS that can turn around.
Just for purposes, I would need to recuse myself from any of these discussions.
I was getting ready to ask that question.
Yes.
May I have a motion to allow Ms. Redding to recuse herself from this discussion?
So move.
Ms. Heath makes a motion, may I have a second? Mr. Burks, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Redding, you are recused from discussion on this one item.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so you're asking us for approval to do this,
To proceed with
the closure.
Proceed with the
Connie,
the public notices, I think it's 4 weeks in a row, right?
Right, there'll have to be formal resolutions. If it's the general consensus with the exclusion of Councilmember Redding, who's been recused, if it's the general consensus amongst the rest of the council members to proceed with the plan, that'll be sufficient in the minutes to allow us, and then we'll bring specific resolutions and ordinances to you as that progresses.
is
for
there
you to vote on.
any objection to proceeding with this proposed closure? Hearing none, we will direct staff to move forward with the appropriate advertising and direction, whatever.
We'll bring the legal instruments to you.
That's it. Struggling tonight. Okay. Item 8E is proposed prohibition of on-street parking on both sides of West Kivett Street between South Church and South Park.
Yes, sir. On the screen and in your packets, you have a drawing for the consideration showing the proposed area of prohibition. This will be between West Kivett Street between South Park and South Church Street.
Is it possible to add another street in a section to this?
We'll do whatever you guys.
Well, you know, we find ourselves in a difficult situation, and I ask, we've heard from neighbors in this particular section because that is not a curb and gutter street, and it's very narrow. We've heard from neighbors that are concerned about the egress, the ease of egress through there, and it's difficult. And Mr. Moffett and I, or what Mr. Moffat's talking about, is another section of City Street where people are running businesses out of their homes and parking their work trucks with trailers and transfer trucks with trailers and road tractors and whatnot in other residential neighborhoods, blocking streets that are even a little wider than this and making it unsafe because you can't see around the tractor.
Especially when it's not a school bus stop, and they take up from driveway to driveway. The ordinance is to be 25 foot in the driveway. Chuck goes and has them move. They agree to move. They agree not to come back. Right around the block.
Come back.
One of the sections we're getting ready to approve, the guy says, no, I'm not moving. And I've been through there a couple of times in the early evening and met somebody coming, and you cannot get around this truck when somebody even, and this is a wide city street. It's just become really difficult when more and more of the road tractors are parking in residential neighborhoods.
You know, and on Rich Avenue, where we're talking about, I'd be fine with like a 2-hour parking or something other. It's the overnight weeks on end.
And in that particular case, he unhooks his trailer and leaves it
It just
sitting
leaves
there.
the trailer sitting there, and that's clearly against the rules, you know, but we don't have enough fine in this, just like we don't have enough fine in the animal ordinance to get nobody paying attention.
There's no deterrent. And when you have someone that our code enforcement person talks about not parking his road tractor there, and he pretty much says, no, you're not gonna make me do that.
Need a second offense number of about $100 and a third offense about $500. Then we'll have something.
All right, so, in this particular case, we have a request in front of us, a proposal in front of us to close this section of West Kivett between Church and Park. Do I have a motion to do that?
To create a no parking.
Create a no parking.
Yeah, I'm sorry, to create no parking on the street.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I move we approve the no parking designation for West Kivett between South Church and South Park.
So again, Mayor, we'll come back, I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
So if there's a second and approves a second, then again, Mr. Leonard working for Mr. Sugg to get the ordinance written and get it back in front of the council for final approval and then sign.
This particular street is worse because it is not curb and gutter.
Yeah, it really is.
The other end of, the Kivett, just on the other side of Park, West Kivett on the other side of Park is curb and gutter, and there's probably 6 or 8 cars that park out there every night.
That's the next one down.
No, that's over in front of, that's on the East Kivett over at the church, where the truck's parking. So, I was talking about going down toward Uwari, past Lee Street or past Park and to Lee and whatnot. There are neighborhoods where people have to park on the street. And I'm not concerned about the cars parking on the street as much as I am these transfer trucks and these work trucks. Because they're larger and they block the road. And if we're getting ready to address the section there between Main Street and Cox Street.
Yes, sir.
And those cars coming up Kivett from Glenwood, coming up through there toward Main and around that church, they are flying. And that truck's just blocking the road. And we're forced to do something about it because he won't do something about it. So that's my soapbox tonight. Do I have a second for this proposal? Mr. Bell made the motion.
I did.
I didn't get a second.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that, item 8E is approved. 8F is a similar proposed prohibition of on-street parking on both sides of East Kivett Street between Cox Street and Main Street.
Yes, sir. You have in your package a drawing showing this as well. This will be similar circumstances.
Do we, I don't live over that way anymore and don't go through there on Sunday morning, but do the people at the Friends Church park on the street during services?
I'm not aware.
They haven't been lately.
Yeah. Pardon?
They haven't been lately. Most of the time it has fit.
Well, I would hate to do that, in some places we'd prohibit on-street parking except during church, services or whatever, certain hours.
Well, since they built that additional parking lot there on the corner,
I hadn't seen it in several years.
I don't recall noticing any cars out there, but I would hate to do this and then have them show up and say, oh, we parked there on Sunday morning during service.
I'm sure they're like us, we wish we had that problem.
Well, I think they'll be more happy with
Getting the truck out of there.
getting the stuff off the street.
And I sympathize with the trucks. You know, they have no place. I see road tractors parked in people's front yards now, which is better than on the street. But it's still.
Not if you're the landlord.
Yeah. And we have tractor trailers parking on the ramps out here on the interstate highway at night. If you've ever noticed a car sitting on the ramp all day, it's because the guy's driving a truck. Drives his car to get his truck. He drives his truck all day and comes back, parks his truck and drives home. So,
Well, this one makes it worse because of the crazy intersection at South Main and Kivett. It's
Yeah.
such a, you have to pull out so far. It really has made it very difficult to travel through there.
yeah, it does. And that, you live over there, so you know. I come through there and the other day, I just about got hit going around that truck.
Yep.
All right, so do I have a motion for this proposed prohibition?
I would move that we prohibit parking as designed.
I have a motion by Ms. Redding. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Heath. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Leonard, item 9, it's an annexation petition for approximately 7 acres at 923 Meadowbrook Road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a portion of property containing 7.134 acres at 923 Meadowbrook Road, owned by Fatima Espinoza. You have in your packets a resolution prepared by the city attorney directing the city clerk to take the required actions. The staff recommends adoption of this resolution by reference.
Any questions? What's the intended, what's the purpose? Do you know, is it about water and sewer or?
No, they didn't say. They're just wanting to annex.
All right. Well, we'd like to get people in the city limits. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve the resolution by reference, directing the clerk to investigate the annexation petition.
All right, I have a motion to approve by reference the investigation of the annexation petition. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Swears. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item AI is approved.
You get to find out now.
The resolution setting the date.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In anticipation of your actions, the city clerk has prepared a certification of sufficiency of the petition. In light of this certification, you have in front of you a resolution prepared by the city attorney setting the public hearing date for the August 4th, 2022 city council meeting on the question of the requested annexation. Staff recommends adoption of this resolution by reference.
That was quick.
Have a motion to approve setting the date by reference.
Mayor, I move we approve the resolution by reference setting the date for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item 9B, approximately 20 acres in the Timber Ridge subdivision on East Aldridge Street.
Yes, sir. This is 20.44 acres at 1926 Old Humble Mill Road, owned by Ken McDowell. You have your, in your packets, a resolution prepared by the city attorney that directs city clerk to take the required actions. Staff recommends adoption by reference.
May I have a motion? Oh, are there any questions? May I have a motion to approve by resolution, by reference, this resolution, I'm sorry.
Mayor,
I'll move we approve this resolution by reference.
I have a motion by Ms. Heath. Do I have a second?
second.
Second, Mr. Bell. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Setting the date.
Yes, sir. In anticipation of your actions, the city clerk is of the petition. In light of the certification, you have in front of you a resolution prepared by the city attorney setting the public hearing date for August 4th, 2022 city council meeting on the question of the requested authorization, and staff recommends adoption by reference.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve our reference, the resolution setting the date?
Mayor, I move we approve by reference setting the date for the public hearing.
Mr. Bell makes the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Sir.
Item 10, council action on permitting and compliance issues introduced by the city attorney. Mr. Sugg.
Yes, sir. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, we'll start with an application for a pawnbroker license. If Mr. Autry would come forward, and Captain Wagner and Mr. Nuttall, this will be a quasi-judicial proceeding, so we'll go ahead and get everybody sworn in. You can stand where you are if you'd like to, and the clerk will administer the affirmation.
Just raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the evidence you shall give this council shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, once again, with your permission, I'll just ask individual
Please
ones
do.
to come up. Thank you, sir. Mr. Autry, you'll be coming up first, if you don't mind. You're right on up to the podium. And I'll just say, before you speak, with your permission, just so everyone knows where we're at on this, this is a discretionary standard, which is why we have to have the quasi-judicial hearing that lets you consider the evidence as the council. If you grant authorization for the pawnbroker license, so long as Mr. Autry stays in compliance and stays in business, he doesn't have to come back unless there's, like I said, unless there's an issue that comes up. So that you'll know the requirements are. It's always good to know what the standards are for issuance of the license. Compliance with the state statute. And then the city code goes in to give these other factors for the city council to consider. The application contains no misstatement of fact. The applicant conforms to all requirements of applicable zoning, building, and fire prevention codes. The applicant shall not have been convicted of a felony within a 10-year period preceding the filing of the application. Parking facilities and traffic control infrastructure in the neighborhood, and the recommendations of the Asheboro Police Department, along with any other evidence that would tend to show whether the operation of the business at the proposed location would be detrimental to the neighborhood, and whether the applicant would comply with the provisions of this chapter and the state law provisions. With that, Mr. Autry, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the council. I'm sure you know them, but introduce yourself, describe your experience as a pawnbroker, and where you plan to locate your business Please.
My name's Ron Autry, or Ronald Autry. I opened Asheboro Pond in '02. Ran it for 5 years, kind of got burnt out. Sold the business and leased the building for 10 years. Then when the lease ran out, moved them on. Wife and I came back. We ran it for 3.5 years, and my parents got sick. So we had to close it down, move to Greensboro and take care of them. 2 years later, they passed away within 33 days of each other. So then we decided to, of course, come back to Asheboro. So thought, could we open the business? So people started asking us, are you going to open back up? So we said, well, sure, we will. So everything's still there, so we thought, why not? And but we changed the name because we sold the business the first time. We sold the name Asheboro Pond, and that's the people that moved in front of Compare Foods, the ones that I'd rented to for 10 years. And so then my wife come up with the name The Pond Shack. So we couldn't find anything with .com open, so she, so anyway, so that's how we come about it. So, and that's been the way it's gone over the years. We haven't had any problems at all. We broke in the first time when we first opened, and that was it after that. And we work well with Andy and the police department and everybody. So
I will say that you, in my experience, you run one of the best ones we've ever had in Asheboro. And
thank you.
Very attractive building and
attractive girl working
good
there
job
too.
with it.
$5 a gallon, I was on my way.
Yeah, yeah, and they said on Fox News the other day that the pawn shops are supposed to really flourish here for the next year or so. So I thought, all right.
Timing is everything, is it?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Autry, if you wouldn't mind just confirming for the record, all the information you provided in the application is truthful to the best of your knowledge?
Absolutely.
And you have every intention to comply with the city code and with the state statute relating to pawnbrokers?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'll defer to the council if they have any other questions.
Hadn't been convicted of a felony in the last 10 years, have you?
I never had a misdemeanor.
I expect Ms. Redmond now to survive.
I wouldn't be alive if I'd had a misdemeanor. My father would have beat me to death, so I know.
I'll be telling you, we give you for that watch.
Thank you, Mr. Archer.
I would just say,
Mr. Mayor, as you noted, there was a reference to the police department recommendations through Captain Wagner. If he wouldn't mind coming up and speaking on behalf of Chief Lineberry.
Council, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of Chief Lineberry, the police department has reviewed the application for Mr. Autry for his pawnbroker's license. We can find no evidence based on various record checks that the applicant has ever been convicted of a felony. Based on checks, no misstatements of facts have been known that Mr. Ronald Autry appears also to be in good moral character. The police department has no negative opinion issuing pawnbroker permit to Mr. Autry based on our findings.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And if we could have Mr. Nuttall come forward to give an opinion about the zoning for the proposed location.
Mr. Autry has filed the proper paperwork with the city to open the pawn business. The city zoning, building and fire inspectors have reviewed the application and inspected the location and found the property to be in compliance with city code requirements.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we'll defer to you and the city council if you have any other questions, or any other witnesses, or anyone in opposition.
Has you paid the $20?
Yes.
Okay.
He's in good standing with the clerk's office.
Okay. Just check.
All right,
Good
so
question.
We need to take action on.
Assuming there's no one else who wishes to speak and you don't want to ask any other questions.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak regarding this application?
It's entirely up to you at this point, Your Honor.
Okay, need a motion to approve this request?
Mayor, I move we approve the request for pawnbroker license for the Pawn Shack. For Ronald Autry doing business at the Pawn Shack.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Bell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Redding. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, sir.
Mr. Autry, you can see the clerk after tomorrow or later, when she'll issue the permit. All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Sugg, item B is resolution adopting a policy for pre-qualification of bidders for construction projects.
Yes, sir, and I'll go over just the overview. I'll be going into any details that you would like to. The first thing I need to cover is, this is a policy designed to cover all construction projects for which you can pre-qualify bidders, but I'll say it's not coming before you because the city is attempting to pre-qualify anyone for a particular construction project It instead is trying to comply with the construction manager at risk process for McCreary Ballpark. To use the construction manager at risk, the construction manager, not the city, will hire the first-tier subcontractors. The construction manager at risk has to use a pre-qualification policy adopted by the city. The city's plan has to be for all of its projects. It can still determine through its officials, which can be a retained consultant or city engineer, if you want to use the process or not. But we have to do it for all policies, and then it can be within that policy, which is overarching, it can be applied to a specific project, such as McCreary Ballpark. I will tell you that this policy is based off of, or modeled off of some major municipalities and the state construction office, with the idea being that builders such as the construction manager at risk at McCreary does projects for the state. So you want them to be able to recognize what's going on. This policy sets it up to where the city adopts the standards, which put minimum levels for the application, basically looking at your financial responsibility, your litigation and claims history, safety record, timeliness, standard things, financial ability. The project manager for the city can partner and coordinates with the construction manager at risk to settle on what the scoring values will be and the standards for pre-qualification. So the forms the construction manager at risk has, if they meet what these minimum requirements are, which they should, then the city project manager is in agreement, and the construction manager at risk can go forward and pre-qualify the individual firms that will be used as first-tier subcontractors. With that, and also this process or policy also lays out the protest, so that if someone feels like they should have been pre-qualified and they didn't get pre-qualified, the process is laid out how they can protest, and their protest will be considered and a decision rendered. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If it meets with your approval, I'd recommend adoption by reference of the policy.
More generous than the highway department does on design build. You just get told no.
Yeah.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to adopt by reference.
Mayor, I move we adopt by reference this resolution adopting the city of Asheboro's policy for the pre-qualifications of bidders for construction projects.
Thank you, Mr. Burks. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Heath, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item C is adoption of policy required for the expenditure of funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have some of these policies already, but they're not sufficient to meet the federal requirements for the American Rescue Plan Act. For example, we have a conflict of interest policy, and we do have record retention policy, but they need to be improved to make sure that we meet the requirements in the event of an audit. At this point, I will confess that you've got to deal with my conservatism. I don't really want to let loose of those policies yet, because I'm concerned about making sure the policies fit the criteria, but at the same time, you never want to adopt a policy that you can't comply with yourself, because that sets the municipal corporation up for a problem. If you're not positive, you can implement it the way you want to. So with that said, they will be ready. What I would prefer, with your permission, is to continue this, and I'll ask, I heard you say earlier about the meeting, just to try to move it along so funds can happen. If you're satisfied with me getting them to you in advance, it could be continued to the special meeting you call and just be a consent agenda item, to where it doesn't have to be discussed, it's approved early on, or it can be continued to the regular August meeting. I'd certainly defer to whatever the governing board prefers.
What's faster?
Faster would be if I could go ahead, I can have them ready for the special meeting on the 26th and put it on as a consent agenda item with your permission.
Determine that meeting on the 26th was really a meeting, or is that a workshop?
It's It's gonna be with the majority of the council being there, it'll have to be a meeting.
Okay. If that's,
My impression is there's gonna be at least a quorum of the council there, and if you are, it's gonna have to be advertised as a special meeting.
Yeah, so it will be an official call meeting, but it'll end up being a workshop for that project.
yeah, that's fine.
But since it is as an official meeting, it means you'd be eligible
Alright.
to deal with
We
this
just
if you
wanna
wanted
get
to.
to spending. I'm not telling you if I win a lottery ticket.
You need a motion or a consensus?
A motion to continue to the
Motion to
special,
continue to the 26th.
yes.
All right,
So moved.
anybody? Mr. Moffett makes a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Burks. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sugg.
Thank you.
Mr. Nuttall. We ready for, there you go.
I will say, Mayor, that July 26th, no, that should have been 7 PM, and we know it's being moved from City Hall to
Public order.
Yep.
Public Works, so I just want to stress that.
Okay, concert tomorrow night, it is, the Fleetwood Mac, tribute band at Bicentennial Park. The opening act starts at 6, the, Rumors tribute band starts at 8. Big night downtown, it'll be a huge crowd. Chamber Business After Hours is a downtown event. The gathering will be on North Street, I believe, and, that starts at 5:30 on Thursday, the 21st. And then our special meeting, which we talked quite a bit about tonight, on the 26th. Sunset Theater events, you got Bluegrass Friday, the 15th, tomorrow. Kids Summer Movie on Tuesday, the 19th. RSVP presents Mamma Mia on 22nd through the 31st. And Kids Summer Movie presents Raya and the Last Dragon, Tuesday on July 26th. Our senior movies at the theater and our children's movies at the theater have been very popular this year, I think.
They're different.
Yeah, they are. All right. Any of you have this flyer, Cooking with a Cop? Okay, they did one today there, the Cooking with Cops is a, neighborhood policing, deal. They have this really nice grill, charcoal grill they take out, or gas grill they take out, and they cook hot dogs and feed the neighborhoods. And they did one today over at East Side, Brewer Street Park, and, I'm sorry I missed it, had some other things going on, but the next one is, Thursday, 21st, from 12 to 3 at Memorial Park. And free hot dogs, you ought to, try to make it if you can, and stop by there and visit with our police officers and show them support, and visit with the neighbors that come out to, interact with our police department. Community policing, neighborhood policing is really big, and it's very important in our community. So, here's a flyer if anybody wants one. And then there's that's event 2, event 3, they're different flyers, I'm sorry. The 28th, from 12 to 3 at North Asheboro Park. So,
Ben's COVID killed the neighborhood watch. This is a good thing.
yeah. I've been to these before, and the kids love it, the police officers love it. It's good. All right, is anything, we'll start down here with Kelly. You got anything?
Just briefly, I wanted to comment on and compliment the beautiful flower baskets on Sunset Avenue. There's been some really nice comments on Facebook about it, and they're just beautiful to look at, so appreciate the work that goes into that. And I've been hanging on to this for a while. We've been having some longer meetings, but I just have to share, I've had this since March. Our very own Flying Pig was the winner of the Eat, Drink, Restaurant Week by the Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. They won against 18 other restaurants up in Greensboro in the casual dining category. So congratulations to them.
Wow, I did not know that. That's special. Mr. Swears.
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Bell.
Three things real quick. Belated happy birthday, Walker and Audra. Pass that along. I've
Go Medicare.
spoken with several members of our employees, city staff. We're very appreciative of our budget, particularly as it relates to, their bottom line. Encourage everybody to go out to our McCrary Park. I've been out several times with our zookeepers and have received very favorable comments. We're excited about the completion of our, concession stand and remind everybody about tomorrow night at Bicentennial. I understand that's a very good group.
Gonna be a huge crowd. We thought AC/DC was big. I think, with good weather, we're gonna have a bigger crowd tomorrow night. The American Legion Baseball, for Post 45 won their second round, of the regional, divisional playoffs, and they'll start a new round. I'm not exactly sure. Do you know, Bill?
I think it's, tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
At home?
Yeah.
All right.
That first game.
And this is leading, building,
I think it would have been at home, but because
Oh.
zookeepers playing home,
That's
they're
right.
playing away, then they'll play
All right.
home.
That's
all
right.
right, and this is building, leading up to the regional coming up in the middle of August, or early August. And ultimately to the World Series in Shelby, and maybe our team will get there this year. They've been very, very competitive the last few years, and they've been winning, this year. So, lots of reasons to go out in McCrary Park and enjoy that beautiful, playing surface that John and city staff were able to put down for us. That's, go ahead.
I'd like to offer continued prayers for Debbie and praises that this round is going, more bearable, that's my understanding.
Yes, sir. Had my second treatment today. And I'm here.
And, which is most
I'm
important.
not doing any major mathematical calculations, though.
Oh, I'll be glad to help you with the checks.
Mr. Burks?
Had someone stop me yesterday, and they were concerned about a proliferation of aggressive panhandling at the entrance to Walmart.
They need to go to Greensboro.
Yeah, well, I know, that was no consolation to the person that was concerned. So I told him, well, I'll talk to somebody. So it just popped in my head, so here I'm talking to somebody.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but that's private property and we can't stop it. And they know that. Ms. Redding?
Yeah, Mr. Moffitt, you mentioned the Community Watch. Apparently Greystone will be having one. The
National Night Out?
National Night Out is the plan, so just throw that out.
Is that to get our church?
I think so.
Bill?
Well, the DOT has come around, at least one project. I was at Walmart today, and I saw these huge tiles and a big digger. So I guess they're gonna put the left turn lanes in, out on Dixie Drive, and, we turn into Walmart. So, I guess
A double left?
yeah, I guess that's what they're doing.
Right,
As I
right.
remember, it's been so long ago that I read about it, but,
We don't know about that?
I think they're replacing the storm sewer under the drive.
Oh, okay.
I think that's Walmart doing that.
I was guessing.
All right. Well, I
Wishful
didn't know.
thinking, Bill.
Lots of cones out there on
Well,
private
exactly.
property.
Favorite parking lot.
Captain Wagner, are APD, are we doing a, organized, national night out this year?
Yes, that will be organized. Lieutenant Howe usually heads that up, and he actually was speaking about it the other day, so yes.
Okay, great, great. Look forward to that.
I want to mention one more thing. They got the stoplights in Dixieland Acres, and I've only ran through twice so far, so.
What, four-way stop?
Yeah.
Well, you put it there.
Used to, man, I tell you that.
That's not me, I've done it once.
Oh, you did, yeah. Well, right through it.
Bill, I'll get
I
you.
swear that was a stop sign. Back to the city shop, the signs over there, a stop bar would really be great, not painted on the pavement to go with the stop sign.
Well, they got the flag up, and I just
Four-way stops.
Yeah.
ignore
Yeah.
the flag and go right on through it.
They did put flags up so you know it's coming. And, you know, some of the neighbors on Facebook want to know why the city did that. Talk to your other neighbors, people.
Cause you asked us.
Yeah, you asked for it. All right. Been a long night. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate those of you that stuck it out till the end. And we are